We are live. Welcome to Prison Break Season 5 Thoughts. So this video contains spoilers, including for earlier entries. Apologies. Including for earlier seasons, and there will be a playlist in the description box for. I'll start that again. There will be a link to the playlist that has every video I do on Prison Break in the description box. There we go. I knew I'd get there eventually. This is a long video, but there are time codes for different sections in the description box. And since this, since it's about a TV show, it will be the individual episodes. So let's see. And like the first 4 seasons, I really love this season. So a lot of my jokes are not meant as criticisms. Also, if you haven't watched all of season 5 yet, you probably shouldn't watch any of this video because I will be spoiling. I don't remember exactly when I start, but in when I talk about some of the early episodes, I do spoil some of the later episodes. I'm not sure how obvious it is on camera. It's kind of obvious if you see me face to face, but you aren't, and you're probably pretty grateful for that. I had dental surgery a few days ago, so my right cheek is slightly swollen, and there's a what's it called? Black mark. What? Yeah, whatever it's called. The because of the swelling. So no, I haven't been punched in the face. That's not it. It's the yeah. And it might affect my speech a little bit. I think that went away a few days ago, but just in case, saying it up front. So on this show, they break out of prisons in seasons 1, 3, and 5, the odd-numbered seasons. Are they saying that breaking out of prison is inherently odd? I mean, to be fair, it's only in the first season that he intentionally gets into the prison before breaking it out. I'm fairly certain that he wasn't. At least, yeah, for sure. Because he was in solitary for 4 years. At the start of this season, he just got out of solitary. That obviously was not part of the plan. And today they are making peace in Yemen, but this season is still relevant. I really appreciate that. Although I respect those reviewers who said that this is not a show that can really handle relevance. Ogygia is a Greek word, not Arabic. So in reality, in addition to how, let's see, was this partially based on a real prison in either Yemen? It's in a Middle Eastern country, same as how Sona is not quite real, but there was a similar situation in an actual South American prison. This thing of that there was this huge riot where, well, like basically the prisoners took over the prison, but in real life it did not look like Sona. However, the allegory is great. Someone writing this season, a hardcore mythology nerd. There's a lot of allusions to the Odyssey, and I am so here for it. I can't even describe it. And at least one review points out that this is not a reboot, and I haven't watched. Apparently, like 24 got a new show after, in 2017, I think it was, or around the same time, at least. This season having aired in 2017, I realize I'm a little late. Yeah, 24, and I think there was at least one other show, and apparently those were reboots. I am really glad this was not a reboot. It's just, it's a long-awaited 5th season. We get explanations. I mean, basically, hypothetically, if we had seen seasons along the way, okay, some of it would have been like Michael breaking people out of prison, but not much of interest really seemed to happen to the other characters. Although it would have also been interesting to see Benjamin as he, became more religious as he went further into Islam. But honestly, the reason they made him a Muslim in this season is so that there would be someone that Lincoln already trusts who can help him in Yemen. Excuse me. Let's see. But yeah, it it wouldn't it wasn't necessary to reboot this show, and it would have been incredibly frustrating. So yeah, I don't watch a lot of recent television, so I can't really compare this to more recent suspense thriller action shows. And I have to, I was very impressed with how they managed to follow up season 4. I was personally satisfied with how they resurrected Michael. I saw at least one review point out, well, we did see him in the coffin. Technically, like, unless someone, like, checked his pulse, like, if they, like, put some makeup on his face to make him look, like, paler, and if he laid completely still, like, we didn't see him be buried in the coffin, so I don't know, I feel like it just barely, anyway. But yeah, and creating new storyline, this, much like the final break, does an incredible job of just, the company is gone, and they don't have as long to build an overall story. And basically, I mean, I've heard that they kind of they would be interested in making season 6, but they're not in a rush, or they're waiting for the right script, or the ratings weren't quite good enough, so maybe they'll wait a few years, something. I'll watch it when I'll most likely buy it on DVD when it comes out, rather than watch it, I have neither TV nor Netflix, and I do not intend for that to change. Like, I have a TV, like, the thing, but only to watch DVDs and VHS. Anyway. Yeah. Stunned silences. People who didn't already know realize that I still have a VCR, and still watch VHS tapes. Yes, so yeah, both, like, the 9 episodes of this and the 2 episodes of the final break, they managed to create a new scenario and resolve it within the time without it feeling overly rushed. I mean, it moves fast, but all of this show moves fast. And it doesn't move so fast that you can't keep track, for example. Let's see. I would say that Alias and Lost sometimes would move too fast, and you'd end up confused. Now, but that's JJ for you. Yes, so yeah, final break. Yeah, I mean, I already talked about that one. So, but yeah, they managed to, this whole thing with Poseidon, it's a small group. So if you just take out, I mean, by the end of the finale, the only member, okay, yeah, you've got the technician, Thoreau, I want to say his name was. He's still alive, but he's, you know, I'm not 100% sure. No, he probably did still get some punishment for it, even though he gave a lot of information on Poseidon. And Poseidon, I mean, if he's in Fox River for murder, he's not getting out. And I mean, that's the thing. If they make a season 6, they could have him be broken out by someone we haven't met yet. But the female assassin is dead. The male assassin is on life support, and we've been told he probably won't make it to, make it to the next day or something. And let's see, I sincerely doubt that he would ever work with Poseidon again. So let's see, I guess that pretty much goes. Yeah, that's as much as I'm going to say about that before I get into the details of the individual episodes. So, by the end of season 4, most of the major characters have killed at least one person, even the goodest of the good guys. And let's see, there's not really any. I guess, yeah, by the end of this season, Sheba, I don't think ever kills anyone. She does fight the the Cyclops guy. I'm sorry, but that he's literally that's his name in the when you read like the Wikipedia plot synopses. It's yeah, and I guess was there one other? I mean, she's basically the only. Oh yeah, yeah. The other ones, yeah. Whip kills someone. I'm not sure Jaw kills anyone, and I'm not sure I would go as far as say that Omar's quite a good guy. He's kind of an opportunist, and that's not an anti-Semitic. I don't. I really don't blame him for being an opportunist in the situation he's in, and it's not like the season isn't entirely. It's problematic for sure, but it does also have these. Yeah, in some ways that's part of the problematic. The Muslim characters on the show are either just yeah. I mean, I guess Omar is the one with some shades of gray, but otherwise you have some incredibly kind-hearted people like Sheba and Sid, and then innocent people who are willing to fight for what's right, and then you have the evil ones. So it's but it is still, after all, it is still a season that has good guy characters of the, there are some that don't, yeah, there's some American media, excuse me, that does not have any good guy characters. So, let's see. Since Michael is so smart, really a genius, the show would not be that compelling if he didn't have a nemesis who could match his wits. So of course they make sure to provide that for him and for us. And let's see, yeah, some of that I'm going to be repeating when I do the actual review, but I wanted to get into spoilers, and that's why I'm putting it here as well. So yeah, over the course of the seasons, it's different people, but season 1, it's Caroline, and maybe to an extent Brad Bellick. They don't really play him up as being very stupid in the first season, and there are a lot of developments where he tries to figure out what Schofield is doing. Season 2, it's Alex Mahone. Season 3, it's Gretchen, and real also Whistler and Norman. Season 4, it's Christina, Gretchen the General, and Self. And Season 5, it's Poseidon, who, for most of the season, we don't know the real identity of, but he's introduced. We're told that there's a guy behind all this fairly early in the season. I'm really glad that they escaped the prison part way through the season instead of at the end, because I really loved what happens after the prison break. And I also appreciate that the first attempt does fail, because that feels like a little early to, yeah. So the last episode of season 4 aired the, yeah, I'm just kidding, yeah, 24/5, 2009, and this started airing the 4th of 4th, 2017, so it had been almost 6 full years, and I'm very impressed that they, for some of these guys, it feels like they never left. And I realized that uh, Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell, I realized that they apparently both guested on The Flash and what was it called, Legends of Tomorrow. I'm sorry, I don't watch like I said, I don't watch current TV. I love comic book adaptations, but I do not watch the TV shows. So it for them it hadn't been as long, but still, for these characters it had been that long. So let's see. Yeah, and yeah, some of the reviewers say this season is racist, and to be fair, season 3 is also somewhat racist against Latinos, and that's also a problem. But this season is at times Islamophobic, which is very disappointing from a show so consistently critical of the U.S. government after 9/11. Right from the very start of this show, it's been critical of the government after 9/11. So, but again, at least it does have some good guy characters. So so we have some Wikipedia stuff, and I'm just gonna real quick. Yeah, I'm not sure there's that much new. Let's see. Right, yeah, interesting. For those who don't know, filming took place in Vancouver and the Moroccan cities of Rabat, Casablanca. I'm sorry, I'm going to butcher this last one. I really should have looked this up. Zazate, I'm going to go with. That's really cool. That's why it looks so. See that I really appreciate how gritty and just like so much of this show, not just this season, but so much of this show is filmed on actual locations, and they're not technically the exact places that they're doubling for other places, but that's still I really appreciate that this is a show that tries to avoid sound stages because it is just at the end of the day it's not the same. It's just more compelling if they're in actual places. And yeah, let's see. Right. Okay. So, and once again, to save on my wrists, I am using my smartphone to note the time codes, and apologize for the unavoidable awkwardness here. 1720, Ogygia. So I was a little, yeah, I was a little. I felt like the season would take away the closure of the final break. I was honestly pretty happy with how they handled that, and they changed the main theme at least somewhat. It sounds more epic now or something. I like it a lot, and it has a Middle Eastern flavor to it. The similar to how, you know, technically the music of, honestly I only remember the first of them, but anyway, the first of the newer, the first of the rebooted version of Prince of Persia, the 2003, The Sands of Time, which is, they really should have thought of something else to name it because they ended up naming the trilogy The Sands of Time. So now, if you say The Sands of Time, is it, are you talking about The Sands, the game, the trilogy? Anyway, right. So technically it is rock music. To an extent it feels like Western rock music, but there's a clear Middle Eastern flavor in there. And it's kind of interesting that the season starts, it yeah, it starts right at the start of season one, summing up the plot of season one, but then it actually skips from, was it the end of season, for some reason it wrote season 12, I guess I must have said season one or two or something like that. Yeah, season one or two, and then to the end of Final Break. It skips season three and four entirely. I'm not I guess technically you don't need. It's probably for people who haven't watched it in the 6 years, or people who haven't watched it before at all. And I do think that is probably a good idea. You really don't want to people to like, it's one, okay, so it had been 6 years since it was last on air, so maybe some people still remember, but people who didn't watch it, like, there are probably people watching this season, were people watching this season who like only just got old enough to actually get to watch this stuff, so they weren't old enough to watch so yeah, summing up, considering that like the show started in like 2005, I want to say, so 12 years between the first episode and the pilot and the or was it 2004, somewhere around there, and this season in general. So that's, yeah, I don't know. I like the shot of the origami down there, and that's explained, you know, only I think was it the penultimate episode of the season. Anyway, I have to admit I really like how they brought Michael back, but I don't love that they opened this season, the very first episode, long before, like, yeah, by the end of the season opener, you don't know. You think that this is not Michael, it's someone who looks like him, basically. And you don't know what's going on with him. They do answer it from, I, I think the second episode actually answers it. I'm not 100% certain if they produced, like, did they air no, I think they produced all all 9 episodes before they aired any. So it's not that they were like, they got a swarm of questions of like, what's going on with Michael? We want to know what's going on with Michael. And so they had to put so much of it in episode 2. But in episode 2, you realize, nope, this is Michael. He's just going by Kaniel Outis. And for some reason, he lied, which we do get the answer to. But yeah, I really don't love that they opened this episode with, I died 7 years ago. Was the man who died who you thought he was? And doesn't he also say something like, the dead speak if you know to listen, or something like that? Excuse me. I'm not, I don't have a problem with them opening it with narration. I forget, have we had narration? I feel like we've had at least some narration before. Yeah, yeah. Season 4 opened with narration explaining the season 3 stuff. Yeah. I just really feel like it shouldn't be something so, like, it kind of makes it sound like someone actually did die, which is not the case, and that Michael did die but was somehow brought back to life, which is also not the case. The it made me, again, there are shows that can do that sort of thing, and where it's fine. I guess I can't give examples without spoiling stuff, but there are shows that can get away with this sort of thing. But those shows have a bit more of excuse me, a fantasy or science fiction kind of. Nah, I really can't. I would be giving away plot twists from those shows. But this just isn't really a show that can do that. And ultimately, it's not that someone was brought back from the dead. It's just that we thought they were dead and they actually weren't. But yeah, and I've, I'm not 100% sure. Do we ever get a real explanation for how Teabag is being released? Like, basically, the guy says, or no, yeah, sorry, the guard says, "Why are you being released?" And he says, "I've been a model citizen," which someone in a review pointed out, it's hard to imagine Teabag being a model anything, and it's like, I guess he got really, really good at restraining his urge I always mix up. Is it shank with a shiv or shiv with a shank? Anyway, because he was real happy to do that in season 1. Like, if you actually, we forget, because he later does a lot to redeem himself, but in season 1, like, okay, off the top of my head, he tries to kill Abruzzi, doesn't work, doesn't end up doing so. He wants to kill Michael, but Abruzzi talks him out of it. He does kill Bob, the CO, that, crap. There's at least one other person, I just forget. Maybe at least one anonymous person during the race war, This is not, and through season 2, he kills almost everyone he comes into contact with. You've got the therapist, you've got the woman who helps him find Hollander, Miss Hollander again. You've got the guy. Okay, so technically it's only implied, but I would bet money he definitely killed the veteran, excuse me, who he stole the prosthetic hand from. Yeah, the father of the girl that he, you know, so that he could take the car. And yeah, it's so I figure there was probably someone being paid off so that he could get out. I guess they never do say for sure. And ultimately, I'm not 100% sure how Michael would get money, but the paying for the prosthetic, the robot hand, that was seemingly also Michael. Like it's done in his name at least. I'm not sure how he would talk Poseidon into it, and he and Poseidon haven't even had contact in the last 4 years, as far as I understand. So no, it's somehow Michael. I guess maybe Poseidon gave him access to some funds, and he spent that like that anyway. I'm not really, I'm not a gift horse in the mouth looker. I'm extremely happy that Teabag is in this season. And he doesn't want the gum back. Now, I have to admit, the moment that I saw that, I was like, but technically, Lincoln put the gum in his mouth and then he spat it out. So why would it be there? But I really hope nobody like picked it up off the floor and put it back in the plastic. No, it looks as though it's some. I figure that Lincoln had more than one piece, and like he maybe put it in, you know, yeah, I don't know, put it in his pocket, or handed it to a guard and said, "Oh, by the way, Teabag dropped it," something like that. Again, I'm really happy that they did a call back to that, because that's really funny. And I guess he probably would not have a a sort of prophylactic in there. And one of the not long after he first comes on screen, he says, "I like a day." I cannot get enough of him saying that. Including the writers know that about the audience. I have to admit, I do find it kind of convenient that Abruzzi just drives off after. Like, why don't they search the area? And I mean, you could have a thing where Lincoln just barely managed to escape. It's not, Teabag somehow manages to escape Kellerman's place. I still find that very convenient. That yeah. Anyway, so it's not like this season doesn't have the convenient escapes that were also sometimes in the first 4 seasons. Yeah, why did they just drive off? And it's like, "I'll kill you next time." And yeah, so excuse me, Mark Feuerstein, is that how you pronounce it? I had, before watching this season, I had not seen him in anything since Good Morning Miami. So this show is similar to Burn Notice in giving more serious roles to regulars from that show who were mainly comedic on that sitcom. And yeah, I'm not sure. Are there? I guess I shouldn't say who it is on Burn Notice, since you would know. But the person who was on Good Morning Miami plays a more serious role on Burn Notice. But I don't know. I am really, really happy with both of them, because they turn out to be incredible actors. So yeah, I don't know. If there are more that could be, I guess it's possible. Like I said, I don't watch that many. This I made sure to watch the 5th season of this because I watched this back when it aired, and I did actually, yeah, I did do a review back then of the first 4 seasons, and now I do much more thorough videos. So I mean, I was gonna rewatch the first 4 seasons anyway. I was looking for an excuse to do that. So the that was probably the first thing I thought when I heard there was a 5th season. I was like, this is gonna give me an excuse to rewatch the first 4 seasons more than I was. I was like, I hope it's a good 5th season, but I honestly did not have very high expectations. But the season opener won me over. The moment that Michael stopped narrating about dead people, that was, yeah. And the intro sequence promised Paul Adelstein Rockman Dunbar are back, and that surprised me. I did not look into who was returning because I didn't want to, you know, I didn't want to go into watching knowing that. There we go. Considering that the episodes that aired in 2009 and 2000 were still set in 2005, I do appreciate that they don't pretend that episodes recorded and aired in 2017 are still 2005. And, at first they just say 7 years have passed, which made me think, is this season set in 2012? And then later, it turns out they retconned his death to be in 2010, not 2005. And ultimately, I'm not 100% sure how exactly, like, doesn't that, like, hypothetically, yeah, anyway, I'm not 100% certain that that completely works out. No, I'm pretty sure it doesn't, because, yeah, we're also told that Michael was recruited, Poseidon attempted to recruit him with, right before Sarah went to prison, and we know that's 2005, because she was still pregnant. She hadn't given birth yet. I guess you could say that the scene where they visit his grave in the last aired episode of season 4, that was maybe in 2010, and 5 years have passed. The kid might have been about 5. I'm not good at discerning stuff like that. Not with children, at least. So the yeah, you could maybe say that that scene was set in 2010, but she was definitely, her being in prison in the final break, that was definitely not 2010, because she only has the one kid, and she was pregnant in 2005, because the first 4 seasons, basically, it happens over several months. It never, excuse me, it never does a time skip of more than, anyway. So, ultimately, given that he was recruited in 2005, and they talk about, oh, he's been working for them for 7 years, it doesn't completely work out, but I really don't blame them for retconning it. It would, yeah, it would be ridiculous to pretend. Let me see. Yeah, yeah. When we see the tombstone, now it says he died in 2010. I can live with that. It's been 12 whole years between when the first episode aired and when the season opener of season 5 airs. I mean, people age. It's just, to quote Colonel Stryker, nature. And Wentworth Miller and Dominic Purcell were both producers on this season, so that's good. And that's, I don't, I'm not 100% certain if they were. They might have been on like season 4 as well, but that happens after a show has aired for a number of years. Sometimes at least some of the stars will end up producers, and sometimes they have bad ideas, but I mean, by then they know their characters so well. So anyway. And So we find out that Sarah married someone else, and I noted, I really hope we're not going to see another bad stepfather, since, LJ is an adult, but Mike is a kid, and yeah, I mean, I can only imagine that some of the producers and writers on this show had terrible step parents. And don't get me wrong, having a bad step parent sucks because there's not a lot you can do, but I do feel like the people making this really cannot stand at least stepfathers. Are there stepmothers? Rita is a good step parent. But other than that, like every single stepfather on this show, I guess if you want to say, one, like, I guess Michael is sort of a surrogate father to Whip, but that's the closest that, he's not his actual stepfather. And let's see. Michael was sick. He was terminally sick and he died. Like mother, like son. I do have to admit, the fact that he didn't actually die, just to me, yeah, if it like, I don't know exactly how he managed to fake his death. I guess, uh, death. I guess that someone was secretly in there to take over for the, plugging the two. Technically we don't see him do it. We see him holding them. The at the end of the final break. But anyway, yeah, the him having a nosebleed at the at the end of the last aired episode of season 4. Then it jumps ahead to after he's supposedly dead and been buried. Him having a nosebleed does not mean he has a tumor. There are many other reasons why you might have a nosebleed that don't necessarily mean anything bad. Like if a kid goes to school and has a nosebleed, they don't call the crap, I forget, oncologist, I want to say, the cancer doctor, cancer specialist. They just, if it, yeah, anyway. So I don't feel like that's too much of a leap. I'm really glad Sarah points out this literally could just be Photoshop. The show is so good at anticipating what the audience might say to poke holes in the premises, just to, and often they'll explain it away. And in this case, they don't immediately explain it away, but it is just, yeah, someone did think of that possibility. They're not pretending Photoshop doesn't exist. That would be ridiculous. And Michael, of course, had a code hidden in the letter. Yeah, in the letters, which led Lincoln. Yeah, that's all I got. Let's see. Yeah, and the word is both the title of this episode and the name of the prison he's in, which, just in case it got into the wrong hands, you know, if you don't look for the code, you're not gonna think of, yeah. And the doctor says he can give Teabag. Sorry about that. That he can give Teabag a prosthetic that works just like a real hand. Says it's in your hands. Yeah. And Teabag quotes scripture about a hand. And yeah, and we see Lincoln dig up the grave and find Michael's suit is there, but there clearly was never a body in that casket. It's been weighed down. I forget exactly what it is, but they put something in the casket to weigh it down. And Lincoln puts on the suit and finds the name Kaniel Outis sewed into the suit, which obviously means that it's important. I like the thing with the male assassin hacking Lincoln's car, because if if he manages to make him crash, that's gonna kill Lincoln in a way that makes it look like it was his own fault. It doesn't leave a trace. And he flies out of the car. He lands in the water. I feel like that would still probably physically injure him, but okay. I mean, at least he does land in the water. It would be ridiculous if he landed on the ground and just walked away. I mean, Wolverine could pull that off, but not Lincoln Burrows. I get that the killer wanted to check if, confirm kill, pull over, confirm kill. But the other people there might remember what he looks like when they talk to the police. So it's, yeah. And Lincoln calls and warns Sarah, and the car shows, yeah, that same car, one just like it. What was that thing? I'm no longer really a fan of CinemaSins, but he does occasionally, or did, I don't know. I don't watch him anymore, so I don't know if he still does, but back when I watched him, he would occasionally point to something. Yeah, black SUV must be driven by evil people. It's not like anybody who isn't, which is actually really, really stupid because you're announcing to the world that you're evil by driving in something. Although his was, let's see, how do you know they're evil? They're black SUVs. They're a line of black SUVs driving, speeding, and tailgating. And I appreciate that Jacob doesn't waste a lot of time complaining before getting out the gun, and the he must know about the company because it was proven. Excuse me. The whole conspiracy thing was proven by the end of season 4. Scylla, like early on, we thought that Scylla was just the Black Book, but later we find out that's part of what it is, but it is also all these, it's also a bargain for him. So once Scylla was in the hands of the government, the conspiracy, like, it was too big of a deal for it to not make the news, obviously. So yeah, Jacob knows about the company and such, and by the end of the season, we also know that he himself is an operative. So you know, yeah, he doesn't have a really hard time accepting. But I really appreciate that they don't have like. It would be so frustrating if he was like, "What do you mean a gun? You have a gun in my house?" and all this. It's just some shows that works well for, but this is not that kind of show. We really don't want someone that close to Sarah be that gullible and clueless. Honestly, it would be very hard to believe that Sarah would actually marry someone who would react like that in a situation like that. Like in the very early in the show, Sarah herself would not react the most. Like it took her a little while before she became very proactive. Early on, like in season 2, it really didn't happen until season 2. But in season 2, when people started trying to kill her, Blondie among others, at first she just not she knocked him over and ran out. She didn't go for his gun. But then a little later in the season, she tries strangling Kellerman, but it's not personal. And by the end of season 4, she shoots Christina. So and actually, yeah, at the end of season 2, she shoots Bill Kim. So yeah, she's just not gonna be okay with some. She's not gonna be married to someone who's not ready to defend. Yeah, and Jacob claims to the female assassin that he's alone in the house to try to save Sarah and Mike. and Sarah arms herself with a steel bar that's easy to take off. I guess she was just preparing the house. It's very Sarah Connor, and I'm talking very specifically Sarah Connor Chronicles of her to do. Maybe you're, I suppose there's a chance that that steel bar wasn't specifically made to be easy to remove like that. I honestly really think like this is this is a nice house. They clearly have money. I'm my money is on Sarah asked, maybe she, no, most likely she asked to put in maybe there was already a steel bar and she like tried to see if she could remove it and she couldn't, and she was like, if it would be okay, I'd just like to change the steel. Actually, it's possible. She did tell Jacob why she's changing it because it's a really good weapon, and the bathroom was a good place to hide because there's an escape route, and Mike can hide in the bathtub. Like, okay, if the assassin like threw a grenade in there, that would be a problem still. But if the assassin has a gun, then the bathtub is a good, because the moment that the assassin goes into the bathroom, Sarah can attack before the assassin will have a chance to shoot Mike. So yeah, and that's also like yeah, really the Sarah is willing to risk herself, her own safety, to protect Mike, and that is in character. And Mike is perceptive as his father and his grandmother. Kid does pretty decent acting too. And I do like that Sarah does stay in New York, and it is this thing of like she says, I have a kid. I can't just go to Yemen because of a picture. Yeah. And we're told, yeah, we meet Benjamin, who says he converted to Islam, and I really appreciate he uses the proper meaning for jihad, the struggle within. That's something that it's such a and honest it's such a pervasive misunderstanding, and a lot of mainstream media, news outlets, movies, and TV shows help make this misunderstanding so pervasive. The actual meaning of jihad is the struggle within. It is the like literally, if you look in the Quran, it says, now that we've conquered, it's time for the real jihad. It's time to, the struggle within, be a good person, not go out and conquer. And it's all, and Benjamin talks about how the world needs anti-radicalization. Let's see. Did they have robot prosthetics in 2017 like the one? I have to admit, I haven't really been keeping up. I've never, I've never myself needed a prosthetic, so I don't really pay attention. And yeah, there's not really anyone close to me that needs one. So I don't know. It feels like a little bit too much of a, excuse me, science fiction. I mean, we are talking. It is just like a real hand. We're not just talking like, oh, he can open his hand, he can close his hand. No, it's like an actual hand. So yeah. What the hell is that for? You cannot possibly be surprised that sneaking up on Lincoln, especially right now, would go like that. And it's like, I guess, I mean, yeah, it's one of the many references to the first 4 seasons. That is something I can understand that there might be people who, excuse me, feel like they went overboard. I personally loved it, but that's exactly what he did in season 3, and it had a very similar. Let's see, in that one did Lincoln realize it was Sucre before hitting him? I think so. He didn't hit him. Let's see. and the cargo ship is set up for later. As usual, I quite like the villain characters, the two assassins, and they talk about making people completely disappear, no trace, and let's see. And yeah, that was more of a thing in 2017 and today than it was when the original 4 seasons ran. So it is a good update. You know, it would feel ridiculous if they were still, excuse me, if it was on the same level. You know, I mean, in the let's see, I forget exactly when, but yeah, the actually, anyway, at times in the first 4 seasons, we see people using like flip phones, and so actually, I guess, wait, let me think. Did someone have a flip phone this season also? But I think it was, or am I thinking of one of the other seasons? I'm not entirely sure. Anyway, in this season, you know, a number of characters have smartphones, and it's like it's not treated as some science fiction thing. It's just everyday life because that's, today most people do have a smartphone. In 2017, most people did have, but 2000, yeah, I mean 2005, they couldn't actually have had like in a 2009 phone. I read the goofs that there are times where they're driving a car from 2007, even though it's supposed to be 2005. I like the reveal on, the person picks up, Ben and Lincoln, and they walk off, and then we see Sheba's person walk up and hold up the sign that says that has their last names. Very cool fight with Ben and Lincoln taking on maybe half a dozen guys, and everyone has some sort of tool in their hands. It's, one guy has like a chain, but yeah. Greetings from the U.S. prison system. Yeah, yeah. Come quickly, or we'll all be dead. So they're just not gonna stop making Terminator references. I love it. I just, I I I love how many Terminator references are in this show. Let's see. It is incredibly lucky that she managed to find. But to be fair, the show points that out. You're lucky I found you. So technically, it doesn't. It's not a complete pass, at least in my opinion. But they do address it. They have it pointed out, and she knew when they were supposed to arrive. And oh, actually, yeah, there's a line. You were spotted, getting into a car, something like that. So yeah, and I guess they followed the car. However, why did the guys who were there to kill Ben and Lincoln, why didn't they bring at least a single gun? Like, let's see. Or why did they not? They could have prevented Ben and Lincoln from leaving the car if they did. Like when the cab drives in, if they had run up and like been staying right outside the door with these heavy objects, it would have been impossible for them to leave. And some of those things you could jab through the window and maybe hit one of them in the head or something. It's there for the fight, and I'm not really complaining. I'm just pointing out that there are a couple of things. Yeah. And Teabag wakes up and threatens the doctor, and he's told that the person who paid for this identifies as nobody. Nobody has given me a robot hand. And the other Cyclopses laugh. Sorry, I guess I thought it was too vague of a reference. And Lincoln trades his passport for a visit with Michael. And this, I mean, yeah, it is completely accurate that a real passport is extremely, it's what's it called? It's worth a lot of money there. And, Omar, in the later episode, where it's like, this guy who took my passport, I did not take your passport. It was a fair trade. He didn't lie. He said your passport for a visit to the prison. That's exactly what he got. It's not like Omar made some promise that Kaniel Outis would recognize Lincoln Burrows. And let's see. And that also, it complicates things as for getting them back out of the country, which makes it, again, if he still had his passport, it would be a lot harder to believe that they would keep hiding the way they are later in the season in order to escape. Why did you say that name? Should I compare Michael to a storm? Storms can come back, but the question is it the same storm, or has something changed? Mom, my age is a single digit. This is a lot to lean on me. And Michael claims not to be Michael, says he doesn't know Lincoln, and just walks off. And that was legitimately like a really shocking, yeah. And yeah, so far the season is up to the standards of the first four: action, mystery, intrigue, strong characterization, lots of memorable character moments. Very excited to see where this season goes. And honestly, that goes for the entire season. If, before I hit record, I chose just, I have to. I've made the decision to spend 3 weeks between the last, this is what I do when I review TV shows today. I take 3 weeks between watching, watching the last episode of the last season, which is which I tend to do right before hitting record, and rewatch some episodes from all the different seasons so that I can remind myself of what the show is like early on, since most shows go bigger and faster later in their run than they do at first. Because sometimes, when I watch early, I'm like, wow, that was what, oh wow, it sure got a lot better, which means I can refer to that in the review, because a lot of times them going bigger and better happens kind of gradually, but it's very obvious if you watch the season finale and an episode from the first season, a couple of days in a row. So yeah, I had to narrow it down. I made myself narrow it down. I would be very happy to rewatch all 9 episodes. I narrowed it down to 2. That was very difficult. It was, yeah. Let's see. I do think that the depiction of the violence and chaos in this prison in Yemen is potentially racist element. It kind of does play as if these are dangerous, dirty, different foreigners, more than that this is a place that is really bad in some regards. It's all well and good that Benjamin says that, you know, let's see. Right, yeah. It's all well and good that Benjamin says Muslims are part of the solution to the problem of radical Islam, rather than it's a problem inherent to Muslims and Islam, and the only way to solve it is white dudes and violence. But ultimately, the show, kind of does throw white guys at it. That, yeah, they're there aren't that many Muslim characters on the show, and several of them are not that involved in the violence. You know, Ben himself leaves Yemen on the plane before the others get out. And, right, yeah, and so far the show has neither confirmed nor denied that he's correct about that, since the show does depict a number of things as being ideals that reality doesn't match up to, including things Ben has been passionate about, such as his belief that if he reported torture that happened in the American military, it would be dealt with rather than he would be punished. So, you know, having him assert that this is the, and honestly, last couple of episodes of the season doesn't even really go into Yemen or Islam at all. You know, once Sheba and Benjamin meet back up with brothers in America, the fact that the whole Yemen thing and isn't referenced that much. You know, it's not like she has a really unique solution to a problem that is something that would occur to a Muslim that isn't. So, you know, anyway, let's see. I still love the season. Excuse me. I really appreciate how different the season opener is from the first season. I already compared the third season opener to the first season, and I don't really have anything to say when comparing this season to this season opener to the third season opener. But where the first season opener ended with Michael saying he will be able to free him and Lincoln, here he doesn't seem to recognize Lincoln, and there's no clear indication he has a plan to get out of prison or that anyone else do. You know, we do learn in the second episode of this season, Michael does have a plan, but the first season was about how they're going to get out. You know, let's see, which by then Michael didn't have the proven success of breaking out of prison. He did by seasons 3 and 5. In this, it's the mystery. We still don't know what's going on with Michael, which was the whole reason they went to Yemen. You know, so Lincoln is now trapped in Yemen without a passport. There have already been attempts to kill him, and Michael doesn't appear to recognize him. You know, so it's a really bad situation where like it's the season one the season one opener ends with, wow, can they really break out of prison? And this season opener ends with, oh my god, he doesn't even recognize Lincoln. How are they gonna get out? You know, and ultimately, like, if it's not Michael, are they even interested in breaking him out? If this guy really isn't a terrorist with ties to ISIL, you know. And going to Yemen is by far the furthest the show has gotten away from its original setting of Fox River in Chicago. Panama was much closer than Yemen to the original American setting, and since the show has always been very critical of American government post 9/11, they went for a more direct criticism of American foreign policy this time, since by the time this aired, you know, 9/11 was a full. Why does it say? No, whatever. 16. Yeah, it voice typed 60 instead of 16. Anyway, 16 years ago, so American laws were not as relevant, but the turmoil in the Middle East that America has made much worse still was. You know, I guess, you know, some people would maybe prefer if they had gone into the Trump presidency. You know, I just don't think it would have worked as well for this season. I think at the end of the day, you can say it didn't have to be Yemen, but they did that to be relevant. But it did have to be far away. Honestly, if Michael was just in some part of America and had been stuck in that prison for a long time, it just would not have, like, so nobody in all that time, not one person communicated to some, like, by the end of season 4, Michael is a hero to a lot of Americans. You know, again, this had to have been news. There had to have been news that Michael Scofield, you know, okay, so he was thought to be a criminal, granted, but he, you know, he helped bring down the company, and all these people there whose lives were affected by it. There's no way. Excuse me. Yeah, for sure that had to be. So there's no way that no one would have realized. Obviously some people would have known that it was Michael, but not all of them would have been willing to like blow the whistle. But there would have been one. There would have been at least one. There's just no way. So yeah, the they had to take it out of America, and by going to Yemen, it was very relevant. And ultimately, I do think, you know, I think that enough positive elements of Islam is, and enough. There's enough of a sense of like, what's the word? There's enough innocent Muslim characters, and yeah, I'm not 100% certain, and obviously it's not. This is not a criticism. This is not negative. I'm just thinking out loud. I think that the actor behind Mike might be Canadian. The word he pronounced, the word house, I think it's in. Is it in this? Yeah, I think it might have been like he says something like, "Who would come to our house?" So that slight, yeah. I'm really glad that they. I figured they probably went for the actor that was best for the part. Oh, right, and they shot in Vancouver, so he lives there. That's probably yeah, because they did that for the first 4 seasons. They picked actors who lived in the area that they were filming, so that, and yeah, makes a lot of sense. Honestly, considering that, I mean, yeah. So I guess a lot of the like minor characters were probably played by Canadian actors. I did not notice a lot of. I mean, they don't have that thick of an accent anyway, but still. Where's Benjamin's wife and daughter? Did they leave over his conversion? We don't even see him say goodbye to them. Even if he doesn't think he'll be in Yemen long, it's the kind of thing you talk to your spouse about. It's yeah, and doesn't he in a later episode actually talk about his family? We just don't see them. I mean, I guess they didn't want to bring back the actors, but still, all I'm saying is, like, we see him on the phone and say, "I love you both, bye," and hangs up, and Lincoln says, "I really appreciate, you know, yeah, you can say something like, I appreciate your wife being understanding," and Benjamin maybe jokes like no, she's not that understanding, but she accepted my decision. Something. Just yeah. Let's see. And yeah, so the show wanted to make the turmoil in the Middle East more personal for the average American, and they did so by putting Michael and Lincoln there, because when Hollywood sees a problem that it doesn't quite understand that causes anxiety, what it knows is to send one or more buff white guys who can look intense and punch and shoot, and get into car chases with the problem. But to be fair, this is a lot more sophisticated than something like Rocky IV, and it very clearly has sympathy and empathy for the regular people in the Middle East who did not ask to be part of this. Another example, I realized that the first Die Hard movie, come to think of it, I guess there's at least something in every Die Hard movie. Anyway, yeah, I realized that they did not leave America until like the fifth one, but those are movies about a conservative white dude. I'm not I'm not criticizing conservatives. I'm just saying that's how they that's how they know how to deal with it. Send and a I guess I don't know if angry is the word, perturbed. White conservative guy into this situation that so he can punch and shoot people, that like right from the I didn't realize this when I first watched Die Hard, decades ago, but I saw, was it Sean, maybe Sean here on YouTube, who pointed out that part of why he's even going, part of why John McClane is going to talk to his ex-wife. Wait, are they still together? Anyway, yeah, is this whole thing of like she's working for this Japanese company, and there's this talk about, yeah, it's I that's the Die Hard series is based on the, I mean at least with Rocky, was it at all before the fourth one? I'm not entirely sure. And you've definitely got some, like in the first three, there's, they confront the issue, excuse me, that Rocky is not the only, it's not, Italians are not the only people who have it really hard in life. You also have black people who have a hard time in those movies. So, and I stand by, the first one is legitimately a very well-made, effective movie. Like, maybe by today's standards, not as much, but I don't tend to like sports movies at all. I really, my hat comes off. If I had a hat, it would come off to the first Rocky movie. It's not one I watch all the time, but yes, I've watched Rocky 1 through 5, and I know that the other ones are also good. Maybe I'll get to them eventually. Not the biggest fan of Stallone. But yeah, yet another great season opener, 5 for 5. Which brings us, oh wow, I'm only one episode. Okay, we just reached the second episode, and it's around 12 minutes. I'm going to try it. There's been a bunch of stuff, that's why. 112.20, Kaniel Outis. There it is. I like the discussion Sheba has with her father about whether to stay and fight. Very realistic discussion, one that is had in many situations like that. I get that the idea is that Sheba is not very willing to help because of the terrorism connection. I really don't love them having a Semitic character say that to her it's all about the money. That's why she's doing what she's doing. And now they have to pressure Sheba to live up to her end of the agreement, which means that not only does this episode have a Semitic character asking for money, she's trying to back out of an agreement. Yeah, it comes off as really anti-Semitic, which I don't know. I mean, the most of the season, the anti-Semitism is the Islamophobia, but it doesn't usually do it with characters other than the terrorist ones, which I said I really wish that the season was a more, excuse me, a less black and white depiction of the, yeah. And yeah, the still pictures make it look like Michael killed the CIA agent. Sarah points out, this is what they did with Lincoln too. So in some ways, they've swapped Lincoln and Michael's roles from the first season, with the biggest difference being Lincoln doesn't have a plan to get Michael out of prison, and he isn't in prison with Michael. Let's see. And of course that it's not America, but Yemen. Michael explains about Jaw. the thing with all the money from Queen. I thought they were gonna. I mean, it's got to be a reference to DB Cooper, right? Because by the end of the season, we still don't know if it's true. Which, you know, I mean, by the end of season 2, we know that Westmoreland really was DB Cooper, but the what's the word? Excuse me. Yeah, I think, I have to admit, I thought that they were gonna go and grab the ashes and sell them to someone or something. Jacob, Sarah talk about Michael and game theory. Jacob is making a terrifying amount of sense, and you know, thinking back on this episode from later, now now that I know Jacob is Poseidon, he's talking about himself, and it's such a. I gotta admit, I am such a mark for that kind of thing when the villain, you don't know that he's the villain yet, and he's talking about, this really awful stuff, and you're like, oh wow, that kind of does make sense. Maybe that guy isn't really the hero, and then later you realize that was the villain. So, and again, I can't give examples without spoiling things, but yeah, he's talking about himself, so he does, yeah. So Michael is going to use that piece of gum to gum up the works. I saw at least one review saying, this doesn't have the escape is not as intricate as season one, and the kind of stuff that Michael does to manipulate the situation isn't as exciting. He fakes being sick, and there's, yeah, I do think it's too bad that it doesn't. It's a when they escape, excuse me, it's a very tense situation, but it's not. Yeah, it's not as detailed and such as season one, and that I just don't think that you could completely make that work again. Like I said when I talked about season three in that video, in the season three thoughts, I think I don't think that the audience would really that we the audience would be as into it if they did, because if you look back at season one, like it is crazy how many like they literally do spend that entire season in prison. Like the very very last episode happens right after they got out of the prison itself and they're on the run. But season two is less repetitive because there are a lot of things that can happen when you're on the run and somewhere in America. But there's only so much that can happen when you're stuck in prison. So they came up with a ton of different things. Like even just like in the first season, think about how many episodes it took. First Michael has to get the screw, then he has to loosen the bat, the little toilet thing. Then he has to dig through the wall and all this stuff. And then in season four, in a single episode, think about how many different things they do to get into Scylla in one episode. All the thing they have to climb over, and they've got to use the liquid nitrogen and all of these different things. It's moving so much faster and going so much bigger. I really don't think that it would take an extremely it would be extremely the show would have to make extreme missteps for me to actually stop watching it. But yeah, if they just tried to do season one again in a later season, I think that might be enough. I want to order a pizza. And I really love the thing when Lincoln and the others manage to get to the checkpoint because they stop and wave the white flag. The gunman gets shot. It's such a clever because if they just kept driving like I forget who says it. One of them says they're gonna think we're suicide bombing. We're terrorists. Because yeah, that's why they have the checkpoint to stop suicide. The whole so yeah, but when they stop and wave the white flag, like it's gonna at least buy them time, because what the hell are they gonna do just sitting in a car, you know? But then they see another car driving behind. There's a guy mounted, you know, at a machine gun. It's like, oh well, that's the terrorist. That's obviously, you know. So, you know, they might have had to do more to convince. I think it doesn't it cut away not long after that guy gets shot. They might have had, but you know, Sheba speaks Arabic and could probably. It's very likely she has some sort of identification to prove that she is who she says she is, and at that point, yeah, okay, you know, let her through. And we realize that Michael sent a message to Sarah via Mike. Not entirely certain how he managed to send a coded message from prison in Yemen to America without it getting intercepted or anything. And it doesn't seem like he managed to get someone in America, you know, to does that say? Yeah, I don't know what that note got mixed up. But anyway, yeah. Excuse me. And Michael embraces, you know, the Abu Ramal, I want to say is the name. But again, you know, he hasn't even been relevant for several episodes. So anyway, and you know, he says, "Oh yeah, we're escaping 24 hours from now." So big plot twist, and really gets you hyped for the next episode. And let's see, yeah, and since this episode has Kellerman, so far this season has every single major regular character that was in season 1 and 2, other than Veronica, Nick, and Bellic, who are dead, and Alex Mahone, who was introduced in season 2. I figure the reason Mahone is not back is that they simply didn't have any new interesting character things to do with him. And if that's the case, I'm really glad they didn't bring him back. I don't want to see him back just for the sake of nostalgia, but with nothing else. Even as little as they've given Sucre to do so far is already enough for it to be worth bringing him back. And they do more with him, although he does largely become comic relief. And I mean, Mahone, even just in the final break, they give him something compelling. You know, we don't know if they can trust him. And, excuse me, he really redeems himself after actually betraying Michael early on in the final break. So, you know, it, it would really suck if he wasn't in that. But in this, I'm not sure what they would really have of new stuff to do with it. You know, I'm just real quick. I, the smartphone needs to be recharged. If I can get, excuse me. There it is. Okay, 56%. There. Let's see. Yeah, and I've actually, I since writing that note, I read that is exactly why they didn't bring him back. They tried to think of something to do with him, and they couldn't really think of anything. And as much as they love, you know, William Fichtner and working with him, they didn't want to bring him back just for the sake of nostalgia. They referred to him as Bill Fichtner, which always feels. But I mean, I guess if you talk to him every single day and you're friends, you're not necessarily going to say William every single time. Yeah. 124.30, The Liar. And the kids go wild over Tic Tacs, which is cute. And it makes sense that he, you know, both Lincoln would have that and that he would be happy to give it to them. So the way they save on the CG for Teabag's hand is for him to put a glove on it. How very Terminator. Those references just keep coming. I really should have seen that coming. I honestly, when I first saw it, I was like, are they really going to animate that for every scene he's going to be in? But you know, and it is also like it attracts way less attention, and Teabag does not want to attract attention because people already know, like he, excuse me, he has aged since the last time he was in the news for being dangerous, but you know, he doesn't look that different. So yeah, you know, and I know, I mean, he was never actually, yeah, he was never exonerated. The other ones were, but he wasn't. And Teabag pretends to talk to his prosthetic hand. Very Dr. Octopus of him. You screw me, I'll kill you. I screw you, I, I won't be around for you to kill me. I really love Omar. Lincoln fights, but he does lose. I appreciate that he's not just like in these various seasons. If he wins a fight, it tends to be because it's like one-on-one. Maybe he fights more than one person, but it's one at a time. Like in season one, there's is it maybe the one where the prisoners riot and they're the two-parter I think it is. He fights like three people at the same time, and yeah, he gets a couple of good hits in, but they do manage to defeat him. It would be ridiculous for him to defeat. Yeah, I didn't know you participated in these conversations, Ja. Only when they're interesting, and they're usually not. Burn. So the head guard didn't watch his watch, but he watched Michael D. watch him. And yeah, so Cyclops is basically an incel. And the assassins asked for the cell phone, but Sarah tricked them in there to find out you know, who hacked her phone. Now she knows. It's very, very clever, and I appreciate again, in early seasons, Sarah doesn't have a spy background. She wasn't like trained for this. In the very early on, again, not much of it in season one, but in season two, sometimes she trusts people too much. But later in the season, she becomes more adept at these kinds of things, and I really appreciate that they didn't take her back to before that in this season. She's still, okay, yeah, it's been 7 years since she really needed to use this, but she does still know how to use it because that's the thing. If you know stuff like that and you know you might need it, you keep making sure. That's a thing that you see. I guess I can. Well, I'm not sure I have an example offhand, but yeah, people like that. They do what they can to keep their senses sharp. To keep those things in mind. And it looks like Sarah jumped into the garbage truck. At least she didn't have to lose any limbs. But yeah, so she made them think that she was gonna do something pretty disgusting in for a good cause. Very Heather of Silent Hill, free of her. And whoever hacked the phone has Sarah's thumbprint, so she figures that must be Kellerman. They don't realize it's Poseidon, and of course he has her thumbprint. That's not, but that is a very clever. Like he keeps on about, you really shouldn't drink from a glass bottle. It's really, you know what? I can't stand watching you drink from that. Can we please bring in a glass for, that's yeah. So she touches the glass, and yeah. Let's see. And Sarah talks to Teabag, gets him to look into Kellerman. I need to know you're willing to go the distance. Please don't sing the song from Hercules, though. I am the distance. And Michael put the watch on Abu Ramal, which frankly I did see coming, but the show didn't spend a lot of time catching up to that realization. And yeah, I was wondering if they're really gonna escape at the end of episode 3 of 9. That would be a little disappointing, making the escapes in season 3 and Final Break. And now this, find it fairly simple when compared to escaping Fox River. And some of the prisoners stab a guard for his keys and start to escape. Great tension as the cons try to get up to Michael and the others, but there are guards outside, so they can't go there. And Michael and the others are caught trying to escape. And, again, it would have been too early in the season if they escaped already. And now Ramal knows that who Michael is, and he wants to kill him. Michael makes Sarah a message, but he runs out of battery life before he can send it. I mean, it wouldn't be a season of Prison Break where they're breaking out of prison if there wasn't at least one failed attempt to breaking out that actually puts them in a very dangerous situation. Here, it's that the terrorist wants to kill him. Season 3, it was that Lechero lost power and now wanted to escape. Season 1, it was that they could no longer escape via the pipe, and they needed Sarah to leave the door open, which caused a lot of problems for a lot of characters, even though she ended up coming through for Michael, and, yeah, she loves Michael, so she's happy that he escaped. 133.00, The Prisoner's Dilemma. I can't help but notice that for being in the opening and claimed to be a regular, Sucre has only been in a single episode, the first 3, and he was in very little of that episode. Kellerman is negotiating what day he can have his kid. It's a very, kind of, excuse me, his life really is, this kind of boring, mundane, that he, yeah, it seemed like maybe he did from earlier in this season, and yeah. I don't know who the bigger idiot is, you or her. So good to have you back, Paul. What are you gonna do? What do you think I'm gonna do? I'm gonna save the day. I gotta say, they're doing a really good job. The explosions adding production value to this. It's clever that we don't see, we don't see all of them, and some of them you only hear, but it does legitimately make it seem as though ISIS is coming closer. I mean, at the end of the day, what is it he says? I forget exactly the number, but he says, all of ISIS wants to kill you now. I mean, at the end of the day, by the end of this season, we've seen maybe a couple dozen individual members of ISIS, but we certainly haven't seen a huge army. But we buy that it's there. It's just off screen. Yeah. Now it's madness. This is Ogygia. Because from a flashback of what does that say? Someone saying no to him currently saying no. I quite like that. Now I have a machine gun. Ho, ho, ho. Oh, Cross. Sorry, I thought it had mistyped. But yeah, that is his name, apparently. Or that's what they call him, because he's one of the few Christians in there. Most of them are Muslim. Yeah. And that is also a clever... Yeah, that is true. You know, they hate Christians. And I appreciate that Cross is not exactly a good guy, and he's very much an obstacle and an antagonist in the episodes he's in. Michael said that the spoon was missed by the guard 1 time out of 1,000. If it's once per day, 1,000 days, that's not much more than 3 years, and he was in there for 4. Kellerman talks Poseidon to Teabag and continues to frequently insult him. And so, yeah, basically Poseidon is a mini the company. It's just, I mean, really, we only see him and, yeah, technically Michael used to work for him. So 5 people total. The 2 assassins and the tech and yeah. But he does have a lot of reach. So, yeah, very, very clever. And, right. For a little while, I referred to the female, the female assassin as Blondie 2.0. It's time for everything. 911, I need help now. That is pretty funny. That's probably the only time he's ever needed, excuse me, to call 911, yeah. Yeah, it is a bit unfair of Cross to use an infinite ammo cheat. Do you understand? Say yes, Cross, I effing understand. And Kellerman tries to convince the male assassin that Teabag is already gone. So, once again, a season after the first one kills off a regular from an earlier season, although in this case they didn't do it in the season opener, unless you want to count, that Michael was supposed to be dead before it, but yeah. And yeah, since I'm already taking a while on this video, I'm not going to mention all the other ones. I talk about those in the videos I did for seasons 2, 3, and 4. And Teabag actually managed to get out. It really looked like he wouldn't be able to open that thing. And the male assassin is clearly shaken. And they leave because the police arrive. I really appreciate that the male assassin, he really is questioning things. Kellerman points out, I used to be where you were. In fact, Danny is probably really pissed off, in the afterlife, that he was just a little bit too early. He was just a little bit too early in turning against the company. And to be fair, he did also name Kellerman in the papers, but still. And Michael and Ja staged that, he wants fruit, so he's out of the escape. And Ramal realized that Michael was trying to screw him, and talks about that part of the Quran that says it's okay to lie to trick the enemy. Lincoln knocks out the guy with the machine gun and takes it over. He went full Rambo for it. It wasn't enough that the aging white guy went to a country far away from the US to stop an ideology very separate from capitalism. I was gonna say at least Lincoln ends up not shooting anyone, but then he does. Excuse me. And Whip gets the badass thing of killing Ramal. Let's see. And Teabag gets an image of the guy meeting the assassins, and it's Jacob. And Teabag looks as shocked as the audience, but does he even know who Jacob is? Does he actually recognize it? It seems like it. You know, when he shows it to Sarah, it does seem as though, yeah, he's my brother. He ain't heavy. I had to deny who. I had to deny you. Sorry, I had to deny you were filming me. They can't know. I did consider that was maybe the reason. So I'm glad again the show manages to answer that, and that, that's something that I would say a show like Star Trek Deep Space Nine also did a good job at. The audience would rarely realize where something was going to, before it happened, which is a problem with some other shows. The entire army of ISIL just declared war on us. Yeah, I think that's a pretty epic way to end the episode. I can't help but notice that Sophia hasn't come up at all so far. Or LJ. LJ hasn't either, but he is an adult now. He doesn't need to be in Lincoln's care anymore. But Sophia and Lincoln were in love. But this episode makes me figure that Sheba is supposed to be taking over for Sophia, the non-American person who falls for Lincoln because of his big heart, despite at first thinking that he's maybe a bad guy or helping bad guys. Yeah, later in the season they do bring up Sophia, and I don't know. I guess they didn't want to bring the actress back for it. It would have been a pretty thankless appearance if they did a flashback where they argue or something. But still, I mean, that's another thing. At the end of the day, Sophia really wasn't in that many episodes. I think she might have been in every episode of season 3, but that was like, what was it? 12, 13. It wasn't a huge amount. And let's see. Yeah, after that, she was only in the season opener and the aired season finale, not the actual season finale of season 4, and that's just it. Let's see. And I guess the thing about Lincoln being 100 grand in debt at the start of the season in America was to help explain why he's so ready to leave America for Yemen. It just kind of feel like they did a disservice to the character of Sophia, and really that is a bit of a thing. The show, excuse me, it really does tend to do disservice to the love interests of the show. Like, even Sarah was dead for a while. And, I've now read that the reason was she was very visibly pregnant, and they couldn't really explain that. I don't know, I just feel like there were other things they could have done, but, so that's why it was a body double in that one episode of season 3 where we see her. So, let's see. So yeah, I already mentioned Mahone as one of the only previous season regulars not to be in the season at all so far. Others include Sophia, LJ, and Gretchen, and I think the rest of the season regulars are dead by this season. It's been a long time since T-Bag intentionally worked for the good guys. He didn't really in season 4 or season 3, and in season 2 it was entirely motivated by money. So... 144.50 Contingency. So Sarah talks to a man close to her that has lied to her and told that the man is not who she thinks she is. So a lot like in season 2 when her father told her about Kellerman. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it comes off as really racist that Isil is defined as being very dark-skinned, having big beards, as if that automatically makes you a bad guy. You can't help how dark or light your skin color is, and growing a long beard is not exclusive to radicals. It's very clear that they're being defined as being other, being not white Christian Americans. You want to live? I honestly thought the very next thing he was going to say was, "Then shut up." Kind of a Roland, yeah, moment. I'm not moving another inch until you tell me what the hell is going on here. If not for the fact that the audience knows, what does that say? Yeah, this really would be Lincoln channeling the audience. Yeah, he needed my help breaking people out all over the world. Franchising of Michael Scofield. Again, I joke, but it does make sense that would be, that's how the company used him in season 3 as well. That's why they wanted him in Sona by the end of season 2. I'm not gonna lie, if they actually made a series where he went from country to country, video game, make a video game where you play as Michael, and you can contact some people outside of the prison, and you have to have relationships with the people inside the prison, and like each yeah every so often, once you've escaped the prison, you go to another country to break someone else out of. Yeah, that's. Could they maybe do maybe some part of it could be like Splinter Cell Blacklist? I don't know. I'm not gonna lie, I really want more Splinter Cell Blacklist. Any way I can get it, yeah. And we're now told that Sarah being put in prison was to punish Michael for not going along with it. That does make a lot of sense. They managed to really, excuse me. I mean, in the final break, they did outright say, they're gonna hit you any way they, excuse me, any way they can. In this case, through her. I have to admit, I did not think that Sarah was going to confront Jacob, but that takes a lot of guts. But yeah, Sarah is a badass by this point. And yeah, this was where I made the note that there are a lot of tributes and references in this season to the first 4 seasons. I mean, they definitely are tugging on the nostalgia strings. Is that what? Yeah, they're appealing to nostalgia, but it's not all they have. They don't look like us. I don't think they meant for that to be racist, but it sure does sound racist. Great fight when Lincoln isn't giving up his boots and obviously can't respond because he doesn't speak the language. Well, it's about fists now. It's like he knows what show he's on. I appreciate that Whip expresses acceptance towards Sid, the gay Muslim. I really wish he didn't use the Q word. I get it. It's in character, but still. Jacob tries to convince Sarah he's not Poseidon, and he does make a compelling argument. Honestly, the fact that he met with them face to face in a public place like that, I mean, that really is the writers. They had to come up with a way for Teabag to get photographic evidence of it. And it's, again, the show, seeming to go in a specific direction, and then seemingly they're not going in that direction. No, Jacob isn't Poseidon, and then later they do go in that direction. And in part, it's also that that's something, in that way, they can, again, they get ahead of audience members who maybe figured that maybe he's Poseidon, and they give they give an explanation for why he can't be. It'll be fun. I always wanted to crack at these. And I think that's the thesis statement for this season. I gotta admit, I did not realize what Jaw was doing until we saw the full effect of it, but I'm a fan, and it does make, like, the ISIS members just hear, okay, so there's clearly someone there, so they probably don't know the song or know enough English to know what he's singing, so they, like, if you knew what he was singing, it would sound really suspicious. Why is he singing? I guess maybe they think he's drunk. That's an option. And the episode ends on Michael and the others very close to the jeeps of all these ISIS members, and they run. And Sheba and Benjamin fly out, and they're actually, do they even, do they come back at all before they're back in America? I'm not entirely sure they are, but at the end of the day, they have to juggle so many different characters. The show has always done this sort of thing where, yeah, temporarily, when I was reading the Wikipedia stuff about about the show in general, which, I waited until I watched all of this season so that I didn't accidentally read a spoiler. The It dawned on me that I'm not sure that Abruzzi, like, he is hurt by Teabag before the initial run of, yeah, sorry, season 1 was the one that it was originally supposed to have, like, 13 episodes, and then it did so well, so they ordered another 9, and that's why that first escape attempt doesn't work. They were going to escape at the end of season 13, episode 13, but, so when Abruzzi comes back in later episodes of season 1, that wasn't actually supposed to happen. I guess there's a chance that he was supposed to die from that. Certainly in the episode, it sounded like he would die. Sarah's saying, "Oh, he has to fly for so long. He's not gonna make it." And I guess that's why Abruzzi doesn't make the plane, because they didn't want him to escape at the end of season 1. So originally there was just not supposed to be a plane. Yeah. Anyway, I fully acknowledge that the following is a Mr. Freeze level pun. When Jaw grabbed the gas tank, I think, let's see. Yeah, what does that say? Yeah, so someone should have asked, "Wait, what is he doing?" And the response should have been, "Having a gas." And let's see. Yeah, and then I made the note that, the retcon doesn't make sense, that if Michael worked for Poseidon from 2010, but the arrest was in 2005. Yeah, already talked about that. 155.30 Phaecia. Really happy to get to see more Omar. I love him trying to suppress his immediate reactions to seeing the brothers. The battery might be dead, so might need all of you to push. This is definitely not me trying to get you to go away so that I can betray you again. Battery's working perfectly. So do we push now or what? I gotta say, there is some terrible aim with AK-47s in this season. Like, I get it that, obviously the ISIS members are gonna have AKs, but yeah, and they want these characters to survive. I have to wonder, is this season run by some of the kids of the original crew? Because some of the same last names, like the first four seasons, are by or yeah, one of the people working on it is Matt Olmstead, but then in this it's Dawn Olmstead instead, and I couldn't really find an answer to that question on Wikipedia or IMDb. Let's see, and I think there was at least one other person, but I'm not entirely sure. We might need him. Yes, you need me. I love this guy. He is such an entertaining character. I can't help but notice that every single young female villain on the show is lesbian or bisexual, and their sexuality is used as a tool. I get that it's a useful tool, and I'm sure it's realistic, but it seems like it's. I figure it's a way for them to get some salacious stuff in the show. Comparatively, when there's a hint of men being with other men or being trans individuals, the show doesn't play it up as something that's attractive. And note that I said young female villains, because the middle-aged ones like Caroline and Christina are not sexualized, which is probably because they're not deemed attractive. And yeah, Sheba is clearly very into Lincoln now, which does make sense because of his heart. And she doesn't drink since she's Muslim, but she'll buy him a drink. Michael gets on the internet. I feel like he should hold off on checking Facebook, although I can understand why he wants to change his status from presumed dead to alive. And Omar only has one bullet because he wasn't planning to fight anyone. He just wanted to be able to shoot himself rather than get caught by ISIS. And certainly if he's paying for each individual bullet, it makes sense that he only bought the one. And he did think that he was going to be able to get away. And he wasn't planning on leaving with other people that would get in trouble. So yeah. How many bullets? Enough. Now we're out. I quite appreciate that Cyclops keeps coming back. He's a recurring villain. He's a compelling character. Kind of awkward with the zoom on the binoculars, but I guess they didn't like the idea of immediately going to the close-up on the. Let's see. Yeah, and obviously in real life, the yeah, binoculars like that don't have a zoom, at least not one like that. Wouldn't get within 100 feet of him without taking a bullet. I guess he hasn't been paying attention to how bad the aim is in this episode for the antagonists. And Lincoln knows that Michael's martyr complex is going to get him to choose himself, even before a single one of them accepts a rock from him. Again, great acting, filming, and editing, because yeah, it's right there, it's plain as the nose on his face. And nice detail that even Michael's rock was actually red, so there really was absolutely no chance of any of the other ones getting a white stone. Excellent tense scene when Cyclops gets to the white car and what does that say? And he and Michael fight. Very brutal finisher with Michael taking his other eye. You know, nobody has blinded me. And I will say this part of the episode does have a hard time hiding when they use blue screen. When someone is in a car and leaving the car and close up, clearly they were in the desert for the other shots, but of course, due to the schedule, they couldn't get close-ups and such. Very tense. We don't know how Michael is going to be able to find the tracks. Fireworks, okay? Maybe you should ask that before you handed them out. Nah. And it ends on Michael showing up, but he's been poisoned, so yeah. In this episode, they humanize the blonde, blonde villain season by showing that she legitimately does care about Trisha. And we already got some humanization for the male assassin in that he has started asking questions. She's no longer so sure if he's killing for the right cause. And this episode does a great job proving that. What does that say? So that Jaw is incredibly smart, like Michael says, and that's why he broke him out. And when Michael, you've got the him getting them to blow up the thing, and you've got him realizing about using the fireworks. Lincoln was actually just going to drive out. That would not have worked. And when Michael explains he wants to make 2 tire tracks to force Cyclops to choose, we don't find out exactly how he's going to get him to choose the white car. And the reason he doesn't say it is because the writers wanted it to be a surprise to the audience when, 203:10 Wine Dark Sea. Finally more Sucre this season. And let's see, and I think he's in the next one as well. Is he in I guess he's not in the very last episode. No, I don't think he is. But then we also haven't seen Teabag for a while, but he's in the last 2. Yeah. They get hurt, they can die. Does this kid ever say anything that isn't like really significant like that? I like to think when he picks cereal when they're out shopping, he makes some kind of significant statement as well. I'll be right there. She is banking pretty hard on not being a character in a slasher movie. It's maybe 1% of the population have that blood type. Of course it is, because it always is in movies and TV. I realize that blood type exists in real life, but I swear, if it didn't, they would have made it up for movies and TV. Does the first guy who thought of this trope get royalties each time? If so, he must be a billionaire by now. We haven't seen Jacob quite this frazzled before as well, and he's trying to talk Sarah out of it. Right before she says million questions. If is a big word in that sentence. Are you telling me not to go? I really appreciate that she has the restraint to not start a big argument over it, since he did not demand yet, as she says, if is a big word in that sentence. John wanting to stay in Phaecia, I want to say it's called, feels consistent with his characterization. And he has been a huge help up to this point, so it's not like they needed him to stay around. He has lived up to his potential. Yeah, they've given him stuff to do. Ultimately, I want to say his name was Sid, the homosexual Muslim, ultimately was there to show, some Muslims are not bad, and the let's see, he does kill one guy, I think, and is clearly upset by it. Let's see. There's some conflict between Michael and Abu Ramal because of it, but ultimately that was basically yeah. I love the final exchange between John and Whip about, is that really Freddie Mercury's ashes? So the footage of the two cars driving across the desert, excuse me, and Michael collapsing in the middle of nowhere were, yeah, were in the episode right before this one, but they put that in the intro sequence, and yeah, I quite like that. Very compelling footage. Excuse me. Please, thank you. Oh, and please do not start driving before I've meaningfully looked at the cell phone, because it's a lot easier to get this footage if the car's stationary. Thanks. Mike is grabbed as he's playing with the helicopter thing. I guess by the end of the episode, we're supposed to think that it's Jacob. Like, maybe he was upset that Mike, he was walking where Jacob couldn't see him or something. Excuse me. Like, clearly when it happens, we're supposed to think that it's someone else grabbing him. Very emotional with Sarah seeing Michael after all these years. So by the end of the next episode, we know that Whip is T-Bag's son, and with Michael also having a son, really by the end of this season, the major characters from the first 4 seasons who are still alive, who did not already have kids in their earlier seasons, now do. Let's see. Even Kellerman. It does make a lot of sense that T-Bag is the father of Whip. They have a similar temperament and intelligence, and I have to admit, I only realized that's where the show was going, maybe like 1 minute before T-Bag made it completely clear. Excuse me. And T-Bag is quite the ladies' man, and his explanation for not being there makes sense. Excuse me. No boat in that harbor is going to get us that far. We're going to need a bigger boat. The agent questions the two assassins about the drone and them trying to take out Michael. They're doing a good job gradually tightening the rope. It's becoming increasingly difficult for Poseidon to hide what he's doing. He's had to kill several federal agents so far, and certainly killing the first one did not slow down the investigation. In fact, if anything, it might have been what sped up the investigation. Since I'm afraid I don't remember the Asian agent's name or his boss's name, but yeah, his female boss told him, look closer. Jacob is Poseidon. Plot twist. He runs a Splinter Cell. Ubisoft, if you make a Splinter Cell crossover Prison Break, that would be amazing. I'm gonna do you one better. I have a friend who has a boat. I'm gonna do you one better. I have a friend Y has a boat. And Sucre doesn't know that Morocco is near Crete. They've really made him the comic relief in this season. They're playing that up a bit much, I feel like. I mean, I get it. He was, you know, in the first season, one of the first things is that, what was it? He doesn't know how to spell passionate or something like that. But still, they didn't make him quite this, comedically ignorant before. I mean, he transports stuff around the world on a ship. If he, of course, he's gonna know where. Yeah. Anyway, considering how big a part of the previous seasons it was, I really do feel like the show loses something this season by Benjamin and Sucre barely bringing up their families. And if he hurts our son, I'll kill him. Sarah becomes badass Sarah again briefly. So Jacob is another very personal villain. All the villains on the show either have a personal connection to the heroes or a very personal reason for wanting to defeat them. You know, it tends not to be just money or power. I guess arguably the general is an exception to that. Let's see. I'm not sure I would really have thought of Sucre of the first 4 seasons would be dealing with inflatables, being a good Catholic and all. Sadly, it is another case of the show basically treating male sexuality as the only important part of a sexual relationship between people. Up until this point, it's been human prostitutes, where when female sexuality is brought up in the show, it tends to be a woman. What does that say? Desiring one of the good guy characters or a young female villain character expressing sexual interest in another young woman. When it's towards a man, it will frequently be played as sexy, like. What does that say? Yeah, like when it's towards women. I mean, technically, Jacob didn't say he's asleep in our house. We just assume that's what it meant when he said he's asleep. They made you. They're the ones that made you. I thought it was an analogy. Okay, I know that Sucre is maybe not the smartest character on the show, but they really did make him much more dim this season. It's slightly amusing, but I'm not a big fan of that characterization. Excuse me. Why would he not believe them when they said, terrorist? Why would he think it was an analogy? And Sarah uses running water to disguise the sound of the call. Very clever. It's one of those things where, like, if you, like, it might sound like, well, that's too simple, that can't possibly work. But the thing is, the microphone is going to pick up the echo of all the, because the water, it doesn't just, like, if you drop a rock, it hits one place and that's it. But water, all the little individual hit, and that makes noise, and the microphone picks that up. Holy crap, Heather is an excellent friend. She didn't even ask questions from this very out there request. No wonder Sarah considers her her best friend. I mean, I guess she knows all about the stuff from the first 4 seasons, so when Sarah calls with something like that, she figures it's something along those lines, but still, that is a big, yeah. And the seals take Sucre away, and the bad guy, sorry, yeah, and we realize that the guys were hiding in a secret compartment. Sucre does a good job pretending he's not part of the mission. As far as I know, the stuff they use as a tactic against the SEALs would more or less work in real life. The SEALs have to assume that these guys are armed. Obviously, that means they're not just going to run in there. That's why they use the gas, and once the guys are inside the Cargo 17 thing, it's especially dangerous to approach them. Captain, I'm Puerto Rican. Sarah's like, I'm gonna get my gun, and Jacob confronts her. How is that not enough for you? Poor guy. He just doesn't understand that on this show, every single male, every single male step parent is a bad step parent. I can't think of any step parent on the entire show that isn't at least slightly shown to be a bad step parent other than Rita. We only really see him be a bad stepdad after this episode, but still, he does put Mike in substantial danger. Very clever to damage the controls and steer the ship towards Algeria. As they say, it would cause a diplomatic incident if the SEALs are on board. And they manage to jump off the boat just in time to get away from the explosion. And I hate to be a logic sheriff, but it sure is lucky for them that the SEALs were sent in before the missile, since they wouldn't have known about the missile without the tell of the SEAL team leaving. But, I mean, it does make some sense to start with the SEAL team. And I guess, I mean, is this a boat that just doesn't have a lot of people on it? Is the captain still knocked out? Did he get blown up by the missile? Yeah. when Jacob talks about loving Mike, he does come across as being genuine about that. Your Nightingale trip to Greece didn't help. Florence Nightingale, good reference. It's entirely contingent on whether you put that gun down. Of course he had a plan, even for this situation. Someone pointing a gun at him. He is clearly unarmed, but he knows that she's not going to risk Mike getting hurt. And because she's the one with the gun, hypothetically, if Sarah had called the cops on him, what's she going to say when they show up? She's the one holding the gun, and we know he's a good liar. You could probably convince them that he's innocent. I appreciate that really it's only the last, I guess, yeah, just these last couple of episodes that where Poseidon himself directly gets physically involved. Like, I want to say it's the finale, the season finale, where he's the one who puts the tape on Sarah's mouth, and he grabs, he yeah, he takes Michael's gun and points it at him, where usually he, yeah, and it's quite clever. It shows that he's pushed into this extreme situation. And let's see, because like hypothetically, let's say that Sarah managed to escape the yeah, if the yeah, there might be like fingerprints from the on the tape from him. 21740 Progeny. So we see the characters basically shipwrecked in what looks like the middle of nowhere. If I could find some water and some food, help me get my strength back. Maybe some bananas. I know everything about you, even the most mundane of details. Like, what's, excuse me, what's with you in the zoo? I thought you said you knew everything about him, but you don't know what's up with him in the zoo. I mean, I don't expect him to know everything, but it comes across as though those two sentences contradict each other. Very clever to let slip with the Mike Jr. thing. No one but Michael and Sarah and Jacob know what that means. It's not like they can go to the police and say, see, he kidnapped my son. You base that on Junior or not Junior, that's not. Is it just me, or is Jacob being slightly more sinister and less loving and accepting with Mike now that we know he's Poseidon? He seemed like a great father before now, and I mean, he's still not like he's not shouting at Mike, but he's like, you drew this thing wrong. Why is there that doesn't make any sense? Just yeah. Jacob sees the drawing and gets the idea to imitate it to lure Michael. It's such a clever, because yeah, Michael would think that Mike would draw a map to the, yeah, very clever to have Abruzzi be the way they get back to the States. If he can legally transport drugs, human beings shouldn't be a problem. And again, Sucre is the comic relief. We get jokes about him thinking he's better at stuff than he actually is, as pointed out by other characters. And the male assassin again questions things, this time to Jacob's face. Now, let's see. Yeah, so I forget if it's this episode or the finale, but we realized that Michael had Jacob's face on the front of his hands, not the palms of his hands, and it makes sense since nobody knows Jacob's face. It's not like he was wearing the president's face or something. That would get people talking. And the eyes and the palms, that's where he's supposed to, that's, yeah, that's where his own eyes are supposed to be, so that Jacob's face fits in the, yeah. It is a clever thing, it's what's behind the eyes that counts. And that's why he loves the zoo, because the owl would suddenly turn, yeah, very clever. And yeah, considering season four's all's well that ends well, it's too bad that the cell phone the assassins find on the plane doesn't have a text or something saying "made you look." And Burgers presents the DEA is ready to take in Abruzzi and the others, and yeah. Michael points out that Benjamin should go take care of his family. That I guess he still has, even though they've only been. This is the first time. I think this is the first time. Excuse me. They've been referenced this entire season. I take care of him, you mean? Sheba is awesome. It doesn't bother you? He tied his wife up down in the basement, the woman he says he fell for. Van, can you stop? And Ben says he's leaving 21 Void, and the female assassin insists that's impossible. And you can tell she's realizing she may have to hurt him too, to protect Jacob. And she doesn't want to, but she sees no other option. You cannot leave 21 Void. Michael and the audience get the answer to why the origami went unanswered. I like that Sheba points out Poseidon doesn't know her face, so she can help. And she is definitely a help. You know, if not for her, Lincoln would have been the one driving the car. It is a little bit hard to believe that they would manage to switch places that quickly. Yeah, but anyway, it's not outside of the realm of possibility. I do think they should have given her more to do. You know, she really doesn't get to do very much. Yeah, that's the thing. The show is not that good at giving. Excuse me. Good guy, good girl. Yeah, the good characters on the show something cool to do if they're women. It's mostly women who get to be cool on this show tend to be villains. That's not Sarah Michael. He doesn't know I know. I know that. How could you possibly know that he doesn't know that you know that? You know? And Michael asks about the dinner, so we get another reference to the first four seasons, specifically season two. You know, I forget exactly what it is he says, but he says something about, like, you know, I'll take you out for this thing. You know, so in the first season, he says, once I'm out of here, I'll take you to dinner. And in season two, you know, he's like, oh, sure, I'll buy you this thing. And she's like, you know, for when they go to dinner, and she's like, Michael Scofield, I don't know what you're used to, but nothing less than a filet mignon, I want to say it was, you know, will cut it with me. And then that's what, you know, what dinner were we going to have? Filet mignon. I really love the matching with the matching wits between Michael and Jacob, where they keep forcing the other side to show a member of their team, especially because we realize that by the end of it in this episode, we realize that Michael was running circles around Jacob the entire time. So, and Jacob thinks it's going to be someone from Michael's team in the car, but it's Sheba who does a great job acting innocent. You know, she doesn't look like, oh, I was caught. This spy thing didn't work out so well for me. No, she looks like she's a completely normal woman. Sorry. I could never forgive myself if something happened to you. I guess you didn't get the memo that women who get to be bad on this show tend to be villains. Sorry for saying that twice in such a short time. I forgot that I put it there. I thought I only put it in the review. Excuse me? Notes. I like the scene of Teabag and Whip together, and both of them grab each other by the throat, so, you know, we really should immediately realize that they're father and son. I really appreciate that the character moments that come from Whip having a hard time accepting that Teabag is his father. You know, Teabag can be very charismatic and charming if you know him, but if you only know what you heard, if you only know his rap sheet, and obviously he comes off as a complete monster. And I appreciate that the writers remember that, and Whip is actually uncomfortable with it. And you know, I think it's the this season finale. Michael does also say, you know, if I help, you know, if you know teabag someone that I despise, you know, yeah. But yeah, he's you know he's charming enough that we like if he was as bad as he was in the first season, it would have been intolerable to watch the entire show, considering how much of it he's in. Very clever to have the female assassin pose as Sarah, and that's like when Mike goes in, he's like gonna show Sarah he's gonna show his mother the drawing he just made, and he like looks and he's like shocked, and like you know Michael says there's something wrong. Sarah's in there, but there's something wrong. We think that something was done to Sarah. That's why she's sitting so still. Jacob hurt her or tied her up or something. We didn't think that that's not Sarah, and yeah, so clever. And I really like that we see. I want to say in the finale that Jacob knew that Michael was there when he drove off. He has a camera set up because we really did think, oh, phew, now they're going to be able to save him, save Mike and save Sarah. Very dramatic for Lincoln to be shot by Abruzzi, although he does recover really fast in the next episode. They found a kid who was very convincing as Michael's son to play Mike. And let's see. Yeah, and I noted here, it's really wild to me how different the various cast talk in the one special feature on this season DVD. They sound so different from their characters, with the accents and such. And I'm not entirely sure that I think there might be more than one release for this season. I bought the one that was more readily available and or cheaper, and that's why it only has one. I think. Yeah, I think that there might be one that has more than one. Anyway, very dramatic ending. It really does look like she shot Michael, and we'll find out in the next episode she shot the male assassin, and he does survive. That amount is very credible for being shot in the throat, and if you get medical attention immediately, it is possible to survive that. You know, him being shot in the throat, like if he's shot in the lungs or something, then it's going to be difficult for him to move fast. But in the throat, like if he would probably have to do something himself to try to stop the bleeding. And then, I mean, his car is still nearby, I think, so drive to the hospital. And he's not going to be able to say anything, but he doesn't have to, you know, just 229.30 behind the eyes. That's what counts. Do you know you're a sociopath? A psychopath? I'm not the first CIA man to hide his life from his family. Interesting that that's the first thing he goes to. He doesn't say anything about the people he's gotten killed, the lives he's ruined. He just goes to him hiding it from her. And clearly the male assassin has a hard time just rejecting what Sarah says out of hand. Again, very, really good. Like, I didn't see that coming when I saw him hack Lincoln's car in the season opener, you know. But yeah, they always manage to give them some real depth. Excellent acting when Whip asks Teabag about how to deal with being related to him. It's my own progeny. And he does that. He does such a, you know, it's such a father thing to correct the pronunciation. You know, I forget. Does Whip say progeny or something? You know, he doesn't say progeny, and so yeah, Teabag's, it's Progeny, son. He told me that your mother is dead. Can't you just walk it off like she did last time she was dead on the show? I do appreciate that this time they don't make the audience think that she's dead too. And Teabag realizes he's supposed to kill Jacob, and his reaction is very Teabag. I think they did a good job making Teabag distinctly, like, it's the same character, but he's not just the same. He's not in the exact same place as before. Jacob brainwashes Mike, and he does make a very convincing argument. It is legitimately upsetting to hear Mike believe that Michael isn't his father, telling Michael to stay away, referring to Jacob as his dad. In these last two episodes of this season, Teabag is given family just like he's wanted for decades. And because his life is mired in tragedy, he ends up losing his family again before he has a chance to get to know them. I love the answer to why the zoo. A lot of things on the show are close to being realistic, but just barely goes past actually possible. I think that goes for Michael having Jacob's face tattooed on his hands, but honestly, at least he is having the scanner read off skin. I'm pretty sure it wouldn't be able to off paper, for example. I love the use of the Napoleon quote. Lincoln recovered ridiculously fast. I guess he wasn't as hurt as Sucre was in season 3, when because he did actually collapse. Still, no depths for blood money. Such a good Hitman game, though. I'll admit that I haven't played. It's so frustrating. The last two are just called Hitman and Hitman 2, so just at least give it some kind of subtitle that makes. Anyway, I haven't played a Hitman past Hitman. 1 second. Absolution. I think I did. I end up buying the second one. I think so, because it was on sale, and apparently it's a misunderstanding that it's not difficult to avoid them selling off your data. Anyway, I do have the most recent two. I haven't played them yet, but of the first five, Hitman Blood Money is by far the best. So in season 1, Michael helped one Abruzzi escape prison, and in season 5, Burroughs makes sure another Abruzzi goes to prison. And the male assassin wants to be taken off life support. I guess with the general gone, the writers wanted another pad man. Again, obviously an intentional reference, and the I guess, like, I don't know, if Sarah actually did take him off life support, she probably wouldn't be able to hide that she was the one who did it, and that is, you know, yeah, the it is illegal to it's what's it called, euthanasia is illegal. So and I mean, apparently he wasn't gonna live until the next day anyways. Yeah. And Teabag and Whip talk about if killing is right. It's pretty funny because it's like, well, killing this one guy, yeah, okay, but also this other guy, you are out of your damn tree, aren't you? Now you know where you got it from. And they meet the guy who recreates places where assassinations took place in extreme detail. And he owes Michael, who broke him out of prison. So Michael gave Whip family just like he wanted, continuing the trend of when Michael is in a position to make it happen, does good, even if it might not be the best thing for himself, since Whip is not entirely stable. That I did expect. And you realize by the end of the episode, that's why Michael raised the gun, to force her to show herself and ensure that Jacob ended up with that specific gun, which is full of blanks, which is so much smarter in this situation than removing. I was going to say removing the clip, but it's actually a revolver, isn't it? Anyway, he would know that from the weight, but he needs, Michael needs to recreate the circumstances of Harlan's death. And yeah, like hypothetically, if he waited for the female assassin and then he started raising a gun, the assassin might have shot him on the spot. I'm talking to you, Whip. Good reversal callback. Of course, the female assassin had more than one gun, and Whip couldn't deal with both of her hands at the same time. When T-Bag kills the female assassin, he knows he's giving up his freedom because there's no way he's going to be able to hide it from the FBI who are entering the room at that exact moment, which is, of course, why she looks away. She can't even look him in the face. That's how come. How are we doing? Better than you. Ultimately, Michael luring Jacob is incredibly lucky that Jacob doesn't try to shoot him sooner, that the timing works out so well with the call from Sarah and the FBI arriving. Obviously, it wouldn't have worked if Jacob had tried to execute him on the spot while they were standing, instead of waiting for him to run. I 100% unironically, without reservation, love Michael framing Jacob for the murder that Jacob framed him for. It makes perfect sense to end the season like this, when one of the first things we saw on the season was that digital images were being manipulated and such, and, excuse me, we saw, at the time we didn't know if it was a frame job or not, but we saw Michael seemingly kill Harlan Gaines. So Michael used the blood evidence in Jacob's office. I'm not 100% certain that this blood would really look like it had dried 4 years ago, but I think you can do tests on blood that has dried 4 years ago, as long as there's enough blood there to test and hasn't been mixed with someone else's blood or such, which obviously this hasn't. But then again, I guess the CIA guy does bring up that the blood is suspect. You should know, we have his assistant in custody. I should have led with this, huh? And what's that say? Sheba and Lincoln did indeed end up together. I'm going to try not to read anything into the fact that this show tends to give the non-white good guys a partner. Let's see. Yeah. Right. The non-white good guy is a partner at the outset, so there's no chance they will be competition for the white guys and their romances. Is that why Sucre is no longer with Monica Cruz? She found out about old Vegas? Anyway. I really do appreciate, and I'm pretty sure I've said this in some of the other season videos. I'm definitely going to be saying it in the review. I really love that this is a show that isn't afraid of straight guys expressing love for each other. The last time we see Michael and Lincoln do or say anything is both of them telling the other I love you, with no hint of irony, no homo, no hesitation, And T-Bag is Jacob's cellmate. So, let's see. So this was intended to be the season finale when they wrote the episode, and it's a very satisfying one. Ultimately, ISIS was only the background for this season. It wasn't really needed since Jacob didn't want Ramal free, just Michael gone. So ultimately it's there entirely because the people making the show wanted to include them, which I do understand and isn't necessarily a bad thing. This is an incredible climax to the season and to the show as a whole. Having Michael and Jacob confront each other, not guns in hand, although there is, of course, a little fight, but matching wits, both of them going in with a plan, certain they've outsmarted the other one, and the recreation of the snowy place outside the cabin. It's kind of ridiculous, but it's so ridiculous it circles around being awesome again. And at the very end, Jacob is going to be at the mercy of T-Bag, and we know that if he really applies himself, he can be okay with waiting a long time before killing someone that he really hates, so he will probably abuse Jacob, who may well spend the rest of his life in prison now that they have evidence of him killing the CIA deputy director. Excuse me. So, let's see. Was there something I was gonna expand upon there, I guess? I do appreciate that they knew we wanted at least a little bit of a fight between Jacob and Michael, but yeah. Honestly, here at the end, is it mostly Michael outsmarting Jacob? I mean, Jacob outsmarted Michael in the when it came to Sarah and Mike being in the cabin, though. Michael outsmarted Jacob when, yeah, in the scene where Sheba tricks Jacob, and then here at the end, but it also doesn't, I mean, he didn't want Whip dead, so it doesn't go completely perfect. So yeah, another great, you know, season finale, show finale, and another great season. So, like I said, I'm going to spend the next 21 days rewatching episodes from the all 5 seasons before I do the review. I think, yeah, I'm going to go ahead. Yeah. So, no, you know what? I'm just real quick. 242.00 episode rewatch list. So, the episodes are Riots, Drills, and the Devil, Part 1 and Part 2. And then there were 7. Brothers Keeper, The Key, Manhunt, The Killing Box, John Doe, Chicago, Sona, Bang and Burn, Hell or High Water, The Art of the Deal, Safe and Sound, Quiet Riot, Selfless, Just Business, SOB, Killing Your Number, Phaecia, and Behind the Eyes. Yeah, I'm not gonna be. I definitely want to watch the finale again soon. So let's see. There is. Yeah, so I copied in this Wikipedia stuff and such. I think I'm gonna. I'm not sure there's. I'm gonna see if I find something that I especially want to read aloud or the like. So let's see. I mean, I recommend you watch it, but there's not really anything that I am. Dominic Purcell was actually almost killed on set in Morocco. I'm really glad he made it. Right, and then there's the, yeah, so there's a single making of, yeah, sorry. Should I make another? 244.30 critics and other sites. But yeah, it's called Making of Prison Break Season 5, and there's some kind of, was it maybe the journey home? I forget, but yeah. So let's see. Yeah, they talk about, Miller and Purcell worked together on The Flash, and they got the idea to bring it back. Fox had also been talking about it without knowing how it's topical. They realized the story was basically the Odyssey, so they went all in on that. Relationships between the characters, some of the new ones, rewriting with the old cast, and Feuerstein loved it being inspired by the Odyssey and the plans chance to play evil. The woman who plays Sheba was very happy to be working in Morocco, where she's from. and some stuff they filmed using drones. And that is that. So yeah, I forget if it's Wikipedia or IMDb, but it might be IMDb trivia. But somewhere there's a full list of all the references between from in this season to the Odyssey, and I recommend reading it. Okay, so yeah, it has a 55% on the tomato meter, but a 74% audience score. So yeah, excuse me. So 18 fresh reviews and 15 rotten ones from critics. Now I'm only going to read stuff aloud that I have something to add to. The reality is that Prison Break in 2017 is basically a collection of ideas that Homeland passed on, if you can imagine that. I haven't watched Homeland, so I don't know if that's true, but I I can't rule that out. That is too bad. I mean, this is not the smartest show out there. It is one of the most exciting and one of the ones that keeps to the best pace. So it is possible that it took ideas that other shows, yeah. Prison Break is a very special roller coaster ride that lives by its own rules, and not much seems to have changed from the franchise's later seasons. That's a good thing for fans of the original, but for everyone else, I'm not sure. I can't, yeah. Again, I don't know that much about TV today, so it's entirely possible that this is very, very different from how TV works today. I personally enjoyed that it was so much like, because that was back when I watched TV, so, and sorry, I enjoyed the show back when it ran, in part because it was fairly typical of shows back then, and because this season is like that, I enjoyed, which I don't know for sure if I would if it was like TV today. That was what I meant. That came out wrong at first. Excuse me. Some say that really there's no good reason to bring back Prison Break other than ratings. The nostalgia works against the show. Again, as someone who hasn't watched much TV since, in the last 10 years, I don't know. Maybe. For me, I enjoyed it a lot. One says it's Homeland for Dummies, and the show wants to mean something, and that doesn't really work. In a particular generous or perverse move, Fox is giving us not just a dead show or a dead character, but a 2-for-1 sale. I I want to say that I like that Kellerman, this is the second time we've seen him shot on the show, but the first time we didn't actually see that it was him get shot. So in season 4, when they said, no, he shot the other guys, but in both cases, he doesn't start whimpering or something. He's still a badass, and yeah, I really appreciate that. And in this season, if not for him telling the male assassin, you're killing for a lie, aren't you? Deep down you know that. Or you used to, excuse me, used to be killing for the truth, then start killing for a lie, and it's going to be the same for you. If not for that, maybe the male assassin wouldn't have helped out in the cabin, and then for sure the two assassins would have killed Michael. Excuse me. There's a reason the frame "you can't go home again" amounts to a cliche. You really can't, especially when home's a prison. That's pretty funny. I need answers as badly as Link does. Oh, right. The X-Files is the other show, in addition to 24, that got a revival. Right. And then I copied in. So, yeah, so, sorry. Those were the Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews, and some of them I copied in. I think I copied in the ones I could find. So, again, I'm not gonna read aloud a bunch of stuff that I don't have anything to comment on. Okay, let me think. Okay, so it's almost 3 hours, and it's the yeah. I skimmed these anyway. I already read this, but some of it I read. Let's see. Excuse me. So I am gonna try to not let there be too much dead air here. So let's see. Excuse me. So let's see. I have to say I never liked that they killed Michael. I don't mind tragic endings. It just felt like they did it because they wanted to get people to cry at the finale, rather than that it really made sense, or and surprise people. I I think a lot of my favorite movies have very sad endings. It's not that I think everything needs to have a happy ending. It just didn't feel right. And I gotta say, I think even if I hated this season, I would still like that they explained that he didn't actually die. It never felt right to me. So let's see. Okay, I'm sorry, but I just have to comment on this. This critic says, if you watch The Flash or Legends of Tomorrow, seeing Purcell and Miller side by side once again really isn't that all that special, and that sadly takes something away from this new season of Prison Break. But they're playing completely different characters, though. I don't see how, yeah, I don't see how it could take very much away from this season, honestly. Excuse me. So, oh right, here are some other, yeah, Gilmore Girls and Twin Peaks also got some long delayed new chapters. Yeah. So, yeah, so this is the critic that says, hard to imagine Teabag being well anything, but Nepper still plays him to the hilt and remains the best thing about this series. And that, yeah, I don't know that I would say the best thing, but one of the best things. So one of the critics says that the it's frustrating that Lincoln has, you know, let's see. Yeah, so this critic says, you know, they really love the, yeah, that it was a good thing that the that Michael did die in the season 4 finale, and you know the excuse me, yeah, so they don't like that he's brought back. One of the critics says that it's frustrating for the viewer that Lincoln is back and causing problems again, and considering how much they went through to get him out of there. The I mean, by the end of the season, you realize it's not so much that the $100,000 in debt is not because it's because he realized he didn't want to help the the drug trafficking. So, but yeah, the it is kind of, yeah. I gotta say there were definitely some mysteries in the season opener that in some ways the season opener, I still love it. I'm still saying it's great, but there are some decisions it made that I don't think they should have opened on this thing of talking about the dead talk, and is it which person actually died, and this stuff now. So let's see. Excuse me. Yeah, there are some some critics who say that it was it was fine when Prison Break was dumb but kind of fun, but now that it tries to, excuse me, now that it wants to be taken seriously, excuse me, that's a bad thing. And I can understand. I don't think I don't really agree, but I can understand where they're coming from. Mind you, this is a series in which a well-trained, brilliant female doctor sets fire to her career and risks a lengthy prison sentence for the possible love of a vaguely attractive, condescending prisoner and his brother. You know, if Michael was walking downstairs while being condescending, he'd be a condescending. Let's see. If one wishes to see this as love conquers all, that's all well and good, but for all the talk of the importance of family, there's little over the last 4 seasons, or the 4 episodes of season 5 that were made available to critics, that seems to give insight into what keeps Schofield, Burroughs, and Sarah bonded as a family. In fact, it's pretty clear that no one in the writers' room of this show was ever genuinely interested in the details and real work that goes into maintaining a family unit. Rather, family and its assumed facet of loyalty are seen as the obvious necessary other against the thorough evil and betrayal-heavy doctrines of the government. And for all the dependence that all these characters seem to have on one another, the only things we truly know about a character like Sarah, beyond some largely irrelevant backstory, is how she feels about Schofield and Burroughs. We don't know her or many of the other regular figures in the series as characters outside of their relation to the Burroughs. These brothers, sorry. I do think that is an issue with this show. Yeah, and the critic goes on to point out, it would make sense for this season to go into, deal with that, but it doesn't. Right, and then there are let's see, some articles that confirm that season 5 is, at least for now, going to be the last season. So, let's see. Right, and then there are some user reviews. I may have already said, but yeah, I would love season 6. And not only because it would give me another excuse to rewatch the first 4 seasons, and now also season 5. And, excuse me. Okay, not much more than 3 hours. I think I am going to, yeah, and some of the reviewers really liked the 5th season, some of them didn't. User reviews, that is. Okay, so I'm real quick gonna go to, yeah. I copied in stuff from IMDb and such in the, I guess I'm gonna make this a, yeah, 30500 IMDb stuff and other sites. So, I guess, yeah, okay. I'm not going to read aloud all of this, only the stuff I find interesting. So, I'm just gonna, okay, so first there are the taglines. I'm not sure, I might just skip all of them, but. Two of the season 5 taglines are, first it was a prison, now it's a nation, and sometimes death is just the beginning. And really, both of those make you think that there's gonna be stuff other than what it actually, yeah. It's not about liberating Yemen, and he didn't actually die. Right, and then there's the frequently asked questions, and some of these, let's see, I think, yeah, I'm just, okay, yeah, some of this does spoil a lot of, I suppose, up to and including season 4, but, yeah, you know, I recommend reading it. If you're interested, definitely read it, but I don't really have any comments on it. Okay, that brings us to trivia, because I do have a lot of pages of this, and I really don't want this, yeah. Actually, it's about 100 pages from now of Word documents, so when you're watching this, you already know how long this video is. I don't know, we just passed 3 hours and 7 minutes, so if this video isn't crazy long, it means I skimmed most of this instead of going to, yeah. So, let's see. Because there's definitely some interesting things. And Silas Weir Mitchell, who plays Haywire, originally auditioned for the role of Teabag. I have to admit, I can't see that at all. I think he's an excellent actor in what I've seen him in. He plays a lot of different versions of Haywire. Ones where he's not on the medication, ones where he's completely wiped out by the medication. Various ones, and he does that incredibly well. But for one thing, I can't see anyone other than the 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 inimitable Robert Nepper as Teabag, but I can't see Silas as Teabag. So let's see. Apparently, C-Note was only supposed to appear in the first 2 episodes, but when the show was renewed for a full season, his role was extended into a recurring character. It is kind of fascinating to watch season 1 and look at because you can kind of tell that they really were building towards ending in episode 13, and then they had to do they did a good job of, it doesn't feel, it works, I think, but you can tell when you look back they were really building towards this other thing. So let's see. Yeah, so Paul Edelstein, who, the showrunner, show creator, he hinted that Mahone might come back if if there is a season 6, and that I could see that. It wouldn't have made sense in season 5, but yeah. And apparently the first episode of season 5, the man in the fake images of Michael online. Oh, sorry, Paul Scheuring. Was that what I said? I think I might have. Did I say Paul Adelstein? That's who plays Paul Kellerman. Sorry about that. But yeah, the creator, co-producer, and co-writer of this TV series. I like that. I like when they manage to put crew or, apparently like the Star Trek shows, they would tend to try to put someone who's usually covered in makeup, have them get to show their actual face, just at least briefly in at least one episode. So yeah, when Robert Knepper was approached to reprise his role as T-Bag for the 5th season, he said he did not want T-Bag returning as the same person he was in the previous series. I think they did a really good job. Now, let's see. Yeah, there's a lot of. Yeah, I'm sorry. This is really amusing to me, and I've mentioned some of this before. Anyway, in a promotion tour for season 5, Robert Knepper revealed that despite having been an actor for years, a lot of fans still approach him concerning his last name. It is apparently known by a lot of people around the world that his last name, Knepper, directly translates, and it says to F in Danish. I'd say it's more like to screw. It's not quite as aggressive of a word. Excuse me. But anyway, fellow Danish actors Mads Mikkelsen and Ulrik Thomsen, I'm sorry, Mads Mikkelsen and Ulrik Thomsen have apparently played a lot of jokes on Knepper about his last name, as to which Knepper describes as fun as hell. Sorry, every so often I do take a little bit of, anyway, right. I feel like if you can, you should pronounce their names as they actually are pronounced. But yeah, I can absolutely imagine. I can imagine them having that sense of humor based on interviews and roles they've played, and I can imagine and him taking it in good humor. Is that what it's called? And the yeah, that's really fun. I would like to know more details. I guess maybe I'll try to Google it or something. So let's see. And right, Tweener's death was a result of actor Lane Garrison leaving the series to finish Shooter. Excuse me. I really don't begrudge him wanting a career outside of TV. This was back when, if you didn't get out of TV roles, you might be stuck there forever. Today it's not as much the case in some. Anyway, the yeah, I feel really bad that he didn't get to have more of a movie career than he did. But yeah, I really like him. I'm not sure I remember him much in Shooter, but the last time I watched that, I wasn't really looking for him anyway. Apparently, that forum that Goldfinch.net or whatever it's called, EuropeanGoldfinch.net. Apparently, it used to be, yeah, you used to be able to see the what Sucre wrote to Michael at the end of season 2. Of the 17 people to be listed as series regulars over the show's run, the characters of Veronica Donovan and Sophia Lugo were the only ones to never be arrested. They each, however, were held hostage at one point. Excuse me. That really is wild. Yeah, almost everyone gets arrested at some point, and so many of them are innocent or they did it for the right reason. So, after the character Sarah Tancredi was killed off in season 3, the writers already planned a new love interest for Michael in season 4. They later scratched the idea when they decided to bring Sarah back due to fan outrage. And the last shot of the show, with Michael and Lincoln at the park, was supposed to have a paranoid vibe, according to creator Paul Tishuring, but ended up looking more like a happy ending. I think it would have been, yeah, I could imagine it working well with a paranoid vibe as well. But yeah, yeah, 2 versions were filmed. The one that aired, Michael looking at his family smiling, and one with Sarah telling Michael he no longer has to look over his shoulder, with the last scene being Michael doing exactly that. This ending has more paranoid vibe. I mean, that would make it easier for season 6, but yeah, I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? They filmed it when they didn't know if there was going to be a season 6, but by the time this episode aired, they knew that if there is one, it won't be for a little while. So, yeah, that's the what's it called? It was clever of them to do both. And yeah, one trivia point points out that Michael acts pretty much the same despite, you know, yeah, 7 years have passed, it's been through a lot. I have to admit, I do think, I do, excuse me, I do like the that we see that. I think it would have been frustrating if he had been very different, the way he appears to be in the season opener. Yeah, sorry, IMDb trivia is where it points out season 5's allusions to the Odyssey. And right, and that brings us to goofs. Um, I don't think there was very much in here that I wanted to point to. Yeah, 2005. Yet they drive a 2007 car. And the thing with Blackfoot, those are not mountains from there. And Lincoln would not, as a death row inmate, would not be given work detail or interact with general population, and rarely ever leave their cells. Excuse me. And there's some stuff with, excuse me, the insulin shots and the needle and such. And since the main characters were in different states than from each other when they committed the crimes, they should be in a federal prison, not a state prison. Now, excuse me. So, let's see. And yeah, points out that the toilet in Michael's cell wouldn't actually be they wouldn't be able to use it because where are the pipes for it, which is obviously to make the escape easier. And brings us to quotes. Yeah. And connections, as it's called now. I can appreciate that, by now it's not only movie connections, which early on it was, since a bunch of this is TV and video games and such. But they do still call themselves the Internet Movie Database. I mean, why not media database? Because they do have stuff for TV shows and what's it called? TV shows, video games, and such. Okay, and here we have some Metacritic reviews. And so I'm not sure if I am gonna, excuse me. The best thing about Prison Break is we've never seen anything quite like it. And some, of course, call it a breakout hit, which is cute. I mean, as for the, let's see, the yeah, given that it's been what was it I said, 6 whole years, almost 6 entire years between the last episode aired. Yeah, years. It had been years between the last episode airing from season 4 and the first episode of season 5 airing, and the yeah, either they do it the way that TV was in 2009, or they do it the way TV is today. So yeah, I guess it must have been 8 years, right? 2009 to 2017. Anyway, excuse me. So, excuse me. Either they hope to win over audiences who like TV the way it is today, even though it's a property that, like, I don't know that there's anything that this show could do with season 5 that would make it, like, if you don't like the way TV was between 2005 and 2009, yeah, you're not gonna like Prison Break. At most, I guess it might be the exception to the rule for you, but I don't think there's really anything that would make you like the first 4 seasons, no matter how much the fifth season was like TV in 2017. So yeah, instead they went for satisfying the people who still wanted a, what's it called? Satisfying people who still, who had wanted a season 5 or a direct to DVD movie or something. Excuse me. Since 2009, and yeah, I think that was what makes the most sense. Although maybe they would have gotten better ratings if they had gone for the new version. But yeah, it really is. I think it makes a lot of sense to go for a. Let's see. Right, and that brings us to the Rotten Tomatoes user reviews. I mean, also just fundamentally, I mean, do they make such high concept shows today? I'm not entirely sure that. Let's see. Right, and that brings us to the, yeah, the IMDb user reviews. Right, and I didn't copy in all 750 of them. I copied in the first, was it 25 or something? Anyway, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure I've heard of a high concept TV show that was, new today. The only ones I've heard of are ones that are sequels to shows from, Twin Peaks, X-Files, and such. But I don't know, when I hear about people talking about new TV shows, and Star Trek, also sequel series. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like today they don't do as much high concept. So just from the on, just yeah, they weren't going to be, yeah, the I think that the, excuse me, like I said, I love season 5, and there are definitely things I would change. There are definitely, but it is right, and that gets us to Wikipedia. It is a, the they didn't know for sure if there were enough people who still wanted to, I mean, at the end of the day, you can't really, you can't, I don't know, I guess it would have to be that the millions of people you need to watch the show would all have to, like, go online and vote yes that they would watch it or something. I don't know. It's always going to be, there's a chance, but it might not work out well. I hope that we get a season 6, and I don't know, maybe they will be able to find a middle ground, something that more resembles the way TV is today, but is still somewhat, it is still true to the first 5 seasons. But yeah. So let's let's see. I guess that is everything. So yeah, I ended up not spending a really long time. Apparently there's like, I mean, I already heard that there was a video game, but it's like crazy expensive on Amazon. At least the one that'll ship to here. I don't know. I would definitely, excuse me, at least play it. And I think I did. Did I watch part of a Let's Play or a review or something? I'm pretty sure I remember seeing footage of it being played, and it really did seem to fit with. But despite coming out in like 2009 or so, it's about the first season. It's set in Fox River, but that's the thing with Lost the video game and Alias the video game also, like these are shows that are very specific to like the status quo is hugely different, and they can they can't know for sure what the show's going to look like by the time the game is done, because it takes several years. So they either have to specifically set it during a part of the show that may no longer be the status quo, or they have to guess or something. And anyway, excuse me. Let's see. This is probably the last time I'm going to do a video, unless we get a season 6. This is the last time I'm going to do a video talking about Prison Break where I can spoil the show, because I'm not spoiling anything in the review. Is there any last thing that I want to make sure to say? I'm not sure there really is. I think they did largely done a good job. The various characters that were in several seasons, I feel like they've largely done a good job of staying true to the characters and giving the characters something to chew on. It's not just like it's kind of a, you could definitely, for sure there's a thing on the show where the male good guy characters will very frequently say something to the, you know, I'm going to paraphrase here. I did it for my family. I have to do this for my family. And that is, yeah, it's it can get kind of repetitive. But ultimately, like all of these different characters, there is something going on, and it's not just the same for all of them. Benjamin had the thing where his daughter had a condition where, Sucre, like if his, I want to say was a daughter also. I forget. I don't remember for sure. There's no indication that she was, and also to be fair, it's also in part that Sucre's daughter is only born, partway through the show, where Benjamin's daughter has been born when the show starts. But the various, yeah, I feel like they managed to, like I said earlier in this video, I do feel like they should have done more. Excuse me. In this season, Benjamin's family and Sucre's family, they're barely referenced, and it really does feel like, I mean, these are characters who are so defined as being, excuse me, family men. You can't even imagine. Maybe that's part of the problem. The Sucre, in this season, they make him so much the comic relief. I guess maybe that was because they had to give him something now that he wasn't Family Man Sucre anymore. Because really, when you look at the first 4 seasons, he is constantly talking about how he has to give. That's also, I mentioned in the season 4 thoughts. Season 4 also has an issue with that. But yeah, seasons 1 through 3, that is the thing that he is passionate about. And in season 3, he's talking about he doesn't want to spend time because he feels like he would just drag his family down with him. So he starts sending money back. They could have talked about that in this season. They could have had about how, you know, yeah. Anyway, and with Benjamin, now he's converted to Islam, so I guess that's his character trait. Instead of him caring about his family and wanting to protect his family, he goes through a lot in the first two seasons to protect his family, and now they're just not mentioned, and just yeah. Let's see. But yeah, I mean, among others, Michael and Lincoln are in all 5 seasons, and there's always something going on with them. I Dominic Purcell is not the best actor ever, but he does pretty well, and certainly what he does really well, what he does convincingly. At the end of the day, acting is not easy. There is no such thing as a truly easy acting job. You can phone it in. Excuse me. That can be easy. But it's not even easy to act as yourself, because the moment the camera comes on, you still have to put yourself emotionally in a place, or mentally in a place, in a space, whatever the saying is, that you're not necessarily right now. And it's super difficult to make a movie if the person if an actor who has to go through really intense emotions, if they're not that good at coming back out of it afterwards, that's a really big thing that, you know, and anyway, I think the Dominic is good at being intense and at coming across as like he's kind of hiding his feelings, but he does have feelings. He wants the people that he's around, he wants people close to him to be safe, for example, even though he sometimes doesn't want to say it out loud and such. And I feel like that's yeah, the show, they knew what they could make him do credibly, and let's see, there's the yeah, and Michael, you know they managed to come up with enough obstacles without making him look like he was incredibly naive for thinking. I mean, there are times where he looks really naive for thinking he could, outmaneuver everyone in this particular situation. And they also keep him interesting even when he doesn't have a specific plan, or when he's only trying to work out the plan or such. He enters the show as a character who has a perfect plan. So, excuse me, it's obviously different the moment that we see him, what's the word? Going, improvising, and in situations where he doesn't have a plan. Season 1, he enters, right from the start of the season, excuse me, he has a plan. But in let's see, season 2, Mahone figures out several of the things they do, so he has to improvise. Season 3, when he goes into the prison, he doesn't have a plan yet. And let's see, season 4, he has to come up with plans very quickly. Excuse me, is demanded by, yeah, they managed to keep them. And I like how Sarah and Michael's relationship, like, if you look at season 1, it's mostly a little bit of flirting and such, but season 2, where, she several times, people working for the company try to kill her, And she even does try to strangle Kellerman after the, yeah. And Michael and Sarah are finally able to spend some more time together, and she directly confronts him and like, if that's your big plan, Michael, do you have any idea what kind of a bad situation I'm in? How do you think I feel for having helped Teabag escape prison and these things, but they do end up, you know, getting together, and then, season 3 kills her off, but season 4, both of them are put in very extreme situations. I think one of the, I think, yeah, I mean, I'm gonna say this in the review itself, but now I'm giving examples. I think fundamentally something, if a show has a serial story, you know, obviously something like Twilight Zone doesn't fall under what I'm about to say, but if it has a serial storyline, it's a good sign. It's a sign of a good show if after you've watched at least some of it, you can say there is character growth without alienating the audience from where the characters were when they started out. And I feel like that is true for a lot of characters. Again, there are a few things where this fifth season drops the ball, and that's frustrating. That is definitely frustrating. But by and large, they managed to put these characters into new situations that we're interested in seeing them find themselves in and maneuver out of and such. I really appreciate that. Yeah, I've already mentioned, but I like that when Sarah has to protect herself and Mike, I guess more Mike than herself, really. The she, yeah, you can tell that this is someone who did live through the first 4 seasons, or 3 of them anyway, and she's learned, that's all in the when you go back, way back, she doesn't know how to fight, and she's not comfortable trying to wrestle a gun away from someone, even if she's temporarily stunned them. But later, she does start fighting back and, doing more to defend herself and such. And yeah, in season 5, she has that pipe, the metal thing that she can easily get out of the from in the bathroom. She's got the she has the revolver, and I'm trying to figure out, like, it's not already loaded. I'm trying to figure out, do bullets, I think the bullets were like in a plastic bag. Do bullets maybe start to degrade if they're exposed to the elements, but a gun doesn't, as long as you clean it? And I'm not entirely sure. It might have just been for the tension. But yeah, she has a gun, she has the metal, the steel rod, and when she tells Jacob, he immediately gets the gun. When she tells Heather, she immediately goes and picks up Mike. Sorry. They yeah, it is a very clear, the and excuse me, Michael is a lot less naive in this season about the kind of terrible things that happen when you're dealing with dangerous people. Now, let's see. And Teabag, yeah, I feel like after, and at the end of the fourth season, at the last aired episode, he gets really angry when someone has a gate book, you know, and talks about, you know, oh, it's the negative, it's the captivity of negativity. And he's like, I don't ever want to see that book again. You hear? I think it makes sense that in the 7 years between that and this season, he would really reflect and think about, you know, and would get to a place where he is no longer interested, excuse me, in doing these horrible things that used to drive him. You know, he says in season 4, he tells Gretchen that he once killed, was it 4 people over $5 worth of beer or something like that. And, you know, now he's going around helping to figure out if Michael is still alive, and yeah, I can understand people who might say it doesn't make sense. He doesn't change. He couldn't change that much. Someone like him doesn't change. Some, you know, stuff like that. I feel like it makes sense. I feel like he would eventually stop and think. You know, I'm not a big fan of the existence of prisons, especially in the current form, but sometimes they can really force a person to reflect because there's nothing else to do in there. And sometimes it means that they can realize, you know, unfortunately, a lot of people who are in prison really shouldn't be, but some of the people who are do end up, you know, realizing I did this. This was not somebody. This was not something somebody else did to me. Excuse me. This was me doing something that was wrong, and that's why I'm being punished. And Teabag is smart. You know, at the end of the day, yeah, he might have, you know, ended up really becoming a more a different person like this, and he no longer wants to kill anyone, but he is willing to do so as long as it means, you know, as long as it's someone who deserves it, and as long as it means that things will get better. So, yeah, I feel like it worked. It worked for me, but I can understand people who, honestly, I can completely understand. There might be people who hate every single thing about season 5, and yeah, I completely understand, but I do disagree with them on, you know, or rather, yeah, I don't hate season 5. I love it, but I think that is absolutely everything. I really appreciate that. Like, when I started watching the show, I wasn't sure if they were ever going to give a satisfying conclusion to the company, and I don't. I guess I didn't get it when it first aired, but now that I watched it again, I realized they really did give a very satisfying. You know, it's difficult when you do a show with spycraft and like an entire group of like spy. You know, it's not about getting just this one person. No, it's an entire, you know, group. Prison Break does it better than I think any other show I've seen, and it's very very impressive. And yeah, the let's see, where was I? I'm really glad that the Final Break and season 5 don't introduce a new company and then not, because they wouldn't be able to, or actually, sorry, excuse me, and then either not take them out by the end of it, which would be frustrating, and you know, there's no closure, or take it out in a ridiculously easy way, which I've seen other shows do. Yeah, the fact that they managed to, you know, I mean, in the Final Break, I guess really the for a while you don't know that Daddy is going to end up being an antagonist, but she is, and the General is an antagonist, but yeah, and then in this, it's Poseidon, the two assassins, and the tech, and that's it. And yeah, by the end of the season, all four of them have been, they're in a situation where it's not impossible to, you could continue the. It's possible that Jacob is still alive and the technician. I mean, I guess it's not impossible that the male assassin survived, but the female assassin's definitely dead. But it's not impossible that if they make season 6, that Jacob would continue to be a problem. Although honestly, I could imagine them pulling a Whistler and just having him die at the very, very start, and then there's some other thing that he was technically working on that we didn't know about. But yeah, I think that the that if we never get a season 6, I'm satisfied with the way season 5 wraps everything up. I'm satisfied with this being the last time we see these characters. But if they do make a season 6, and maybe even more, then you could still continue from this point. So that's, yeah, and that's a very difficult balance to walk, and I think they did a really great job. And I think that is going to be everything. So, yes. So yeah, 3 weeks from now, I do the actual review, and let's see, yeah. So I hope you enjoyed watching as I enjoyed watching and recording, and I'll catch you next time.